I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
Kamala Harris becomes the first Democrat in decades to lose the popular vote as Democrats are punished for supporting genocide. Democrats are just now realizing that it's hard to win a general election while you are slaughtering thousands of children. Apparently palling around with Liz Cheney and having her and Bill Clinton go around Michigan explaining to Arabs why their family deserves to die by the hands of Israel is not a good election strategy. Kamala Harris yelling, "I'm speaking," to anti-genocide protesters will go down as a historic gaffe.
Everybody has a right to be heard, but right now I am speaking.
Right now, I know what you're speaking of. I want the ceasefire.
But what about the genocide? What about the genocide?
And I respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
Liberals was 100% okay with losing to Donald Trump, someone that they called a fascist and a threat to our democracy, because they couldn't get over their hatred of Arabs and the left. This is the most deserved loss in history, because polls often show that the majority of the American people support an arms embargo on Israel. And if Kamala supported an arms embargo, she would have had increased support. Do you guys know how crazy it is that the Zionists told the Democratic Party to take a dive against Donald Trump and they listened? The Democratic Party lost everything. Democrats lost the House, Democrats lost the Senate, the popular vote, and the White House to the Orange Cheeto, all because Kamala Harris couldn't say no to her AIPAC handler husband. Trump winning is not good, but I couldn't imagine anything more dire for the future of humanity if the ruling class was rewarded and given a mandate for genocide.
Enjoy Trump, because we're not voting for Biden ever. Enjoy Trump. Go to Trump. Go to the Senate. We're not voting for Biden. Enjoy Trump, because we're never voting for Biden. Y'all pay for dead babies. Fucking lose. Y'all pay for dead babies. What's wrong with you? How much money did you give Joe Biden? Not paying for dead babies. Enjoy Trump. We're never voting for Biden.
Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is also a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, or if you saw us earlier, it was a roundtable with Shama Sawant and Jill Stein. Definitely check that out. Also, Margaret Kimberly joined later on in the show as well. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And this is the post-election show. We have so much to discuss, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to my comrade Nick there for that hot spot, that killer hot spot. And he laid down nothing but facts, because the reality is the Democratic Party lost the White House, the Senate, and the popular vote. This loss that Kamala Harris had is worse than the loss that Hillary Clinton had. And I didn't think you could get any worse than that. But have they learned anything? We'll have to see tonight. We have a number of stories to discuss, and we are going to do call in after the show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I've been waiting to hear from you guys, and I'm sure you've been waiting to discuss how you feel about this election with me, because we have so much to talk about. So much to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Oh yeah, you're doing the thing. Patrons in the house. Thank you so much. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have our 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also this group called Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabby Jabbies. That's right. Keeping their Sabby and their Jabby on all time. And of course, we also have members. Thank you guys so much for your support. And you can see all of their names scrolling here. I don't know why that control button is on there. Why is that there? Anyway, I'll fix that. All of their names are here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker. Thank you guys so much. I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Muhammad Holmes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. I'm going to go ahead and give a couple of shout outs to people in the chat, and then we're going to dive right in, fam. Then we're going to dive right into the stories. Get into the business. Shout out to CBC Voters says, happy Thursday, Sabby Sabs and Eric T. Red. Greetings, Max. Sabby, you've done an amazing job covering the election of a lifetime. We got through the craziness together. Thank you and keep on being you. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we got through this mess, right? Greetings, Rose. Sends a rose. Shout out to Miguel says, peace. Greetings, Mika. Yo, what up, fam? Big love, Sabby, for all you do. You're the best for this roller coaster ride. And it has been a roller coaster. It has been one. Shout out to Casey. Sabby, I got Roland Martin fainting on the floor. Emma Vigilant sobbing on my sofa. We won't have to eat bathtub greens and crock pot kitty cat. I gotta say, Kamala delivered on some of that joy after all. Interesting how that worked out. Shout out to DC, said some were plainly convinced. Now what? The same vampire ripoff is what? Attack China. Durr. Don't know what that's about, but greetings. What's up, Thon says, I am very sad Trump won, but very, very happy Kamala lost. I know. Isn't it a weird feeling? It's just a weird, it's like, I feel the same way, Thon. Like me and you are here. And that's how I feel. It's like, I'm not happy that Donald Trump won, but I'm very happy that she lost. I didn't think this was a possible feeling to have, but I just, just one of those days. Shout out to New York Varsity. He says, Nico House revealed that Jill Stein was taken off the Ohio ballot because she changed her VP after the deadline. Yet, the DNC nominated Harris and Waltz 3 days after Stein did hers. These people are meh. Yeah, rules for thee, but not for me, huh? Greetings, Dr. Darnell. Democrats will continue to lose until they reject the corporate corrupt lobbies and start fighting for poor and working class Americans. So sad the Green Party didn't get 1% of the popular vote. Yeah, Jill actually talked about that just a minute ago when we were on RBN. She talked about what happened in Dearborn. I'll get into that a little bit when I get to the Jill Stein story for tonight so you guys can understand what happened. Shout out to whose name I don't know, can't really say, but says, what an election. I'm going to miss the cackling. Greetings, Rain. If Kamala had spoken during her campaign like she did for her concession speech, she might have gotten traction. Well, tonight I'm going to go through 10 reasons why Kamala Harris lost. I think you'll find that interesting. Greetings. Ellen says, hi, everyone. Sending good prayers to Rome. Please give updates. How can we get ranked choice voting? I would sign, but I don't think I could create or organize for a CBI or because of miscellaneous, mostly maybe Michigan, I think. So I would say, look at the states that passed it. In fact, we're going to reveal that tonight, the states that passed ranked choice voting. Look at the states that passed it, and I recommend reaching out to people that were a part of that, but ask them how they did it. This way you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think sometimes we make things harder on ourselves when we do that. If you look at what's already been done, and then you can go from that and take it from there. what was the other thing? I can talk a little bit in terms of the Rome update. I can talk a little bit about that on Call In. I'm not going to talk about that on YouTube. Thank you, Aunt Banks. Hi, Pumpkin Sabby. Kamala didn't even address the Howard University crowd. Yeah. I saw some of the videos, like the students looked very sad that she just peaced out. Didn't say anything to them. Like that's just, and that makes you wonder again, what would a Kamala Harris presidency have been like? Like, come on, like they were waiting there for you for hours. It's really messed up. Shout out to Lauren, says free Palestine. What's going on? Joanne says grateful for Sabby and fam. Greetings, Benny. This ought to be interesting. Not sure why I said it that way. Shout out to Fire, says be back soon with you all. Doobie doobie doo. Greetings, Taffy said, I'm just tuning in to see Sabby's new hairstyle. Yeah, so I told you guys I was going to make it darker because we're getting into winter. And also I was getting tired of the blonde and all that kind of stuff. So I did make it darker. You guys have never seen my real hair color, which is funny. My real hair color is black, like jet black. Cloudness, Roly Poly, Van Simpson are some real clowns, and I'm glad that they didn't win, so they get their butter biscuits revoked. Happy Thursday, everyone. Yeah, everybody's crying, man. You're gonna see some of the Meltdown tonight, okay? Greetings, Hannah says sup. Shout out to Yvonne, says hi. Greetings, John. Liberals are unmasking their fascist side by blaming minority voters for supporting Trump. Malcolm X was right when he said white liberals were the most dangerous creatures in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah, he was right about that one. And I've been telling people, haven't I been telling you guys, like how liberals can also be racist? Yeah, they're all out in the open now. This time, instead of attacking Black people, they're coming after Latinos. Oh, it's crazy. It is crazy in these streets. Oh, thank you, Katrina. Katrina says your hair color looks pretty, Sabby. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I'll show you guys a picture of me sometime where you can see what it looked like, what it really looks like, original hair color. But we got some things to get into. All right, let's go ahead and show that beautiful thumbnail, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to keep you waiting. Keep you waiting. It is Sabby time and the election night is over. It is over, but we have so much to discuss. What was that song? There's this guy, he was an American Idol contestant, and he formed this band called Daughtry. Oh, Chris Daughtry. He had this song called It's Not Over. It's not over. Well, it's over. Tonight, we are going to discuss, oh my God, media meltdown, actually corporate media meltdown. People are losing it. That is Joe Scarborough there, and that is Joy Reid next to him. Those are just a few. We'll get into all of them tonight. People are losing their shit because Kamala Harris lost. It's crazy. It's crazy. We're also going to discuss 10 reasons why Kamala failed. I came up with a list, ladies and gentlemen, and I have receipts. And Kamala looks sad in that picture, but it's all on her. It is all on her. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump win starts the realignment. We're going to get into the realignment that is now happening with different demographics in this country. And this is all due to Donald Trump's win. So we're going to take a look at, as we're going to look at Kamala, we're going to take a look at Donald Trump's campaign, and we're going to show and discuss tonight about how he was able to get the gains that he did and who he gained with. So we're going to look at some of those exit polls. I'm going to show you what's really been going down. I love this. JB said, us to Kamala, 10 reasons we hate about you. You guys remember that movie, 10 Things I Hate About You? Yeah. And we're also going to discuss the third party gains. You'll see there's Jill Stein right there. I do have updates about what happened in Dearborn. Also, a little bit more data about how Jill performed this presidential election. And we're also going to discuss Bernie Sanders is blaming Kamala and the Democratic Party. And I have some things to say about that as well, because, you know, again, it's like better late than never. But Bernie, you something else. We're going to get into all that. You are something else. You know why? Because you sat right there and endorsed this woman. And now that she lost, now you got all this to say. Get out of here, man. We'll get into it. Get into it. Let's start us off right, ladies and gentlemen, and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And of course, you can see the chalkboard behind me now says election night is over, but I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here. Let's get into it. We're going to get into this first story. Oh, buddy. So, where do I start? Peep this, fam. Donald Trump, won this election. And not only did he win, but he won big this time. And I want to explain why. Number one, Donald Trump this time around won the popular vote and the electoral college. It was different in 2016 because he won the electoral college, but liberals could sit back and say, but Hillary won the popular vote. So more people wanted Hillary Clinton. Now you can't say that. This time around, you just can't. This time around, you can't say that because he won the popular vote. So liberals now are really angry. I feel like people are more angry now than they were when Hillary lost. I think they're more angry this time around because Donald Trump won again. It's like at this point in the game, it's almost kind of like Donald Trump is herpes. It's like he went away for a little bit, like he won in 2016. So it's like he was present, he was there, and then he lost in 2020. So he went away for like a couple of years, but now I came back, now he's back. So in that sense, I feel like the anger is worse this time around, especially what I've seen online. I don't know, Danny. Danny said Simplex 1 or Simplex 2. I guess in this case, Simplex 2. But he's back. Kapow! He's back. And this time he won, again, like I said, bigger than he did before. So not only did he win the popular vote and the electoral college, but he also managed to establish a realignment with certain demographic groups. And that also pisses off the Democratic Party and also liberals who are losing it, literally losing it online. And they are pointing fingers at Latino voters. They are calling them racist, slurs. Yes, I told you, ladies and gentlemen, that liberals can be racist too. But then there's something else. We all got to remember Kamala Harris raised more money than Donald Trump did. Now, typically, that's who would win. That's usually how these elections work. Most of the time, the candidate that has the most money is the one that is able to win because they can put out more ads. They can have more promotions. I mean, she had celebrities at a lot of these rallies and he still managed to win. And I want to get into this clip here. This is from James Lee. I believe James Lee is a contributor to Breaking Points. Check this out. He has a really good point.
No matter who you are, I think Trump winning is great for electoral politics in America. As y'all know, I always try to follow the money, and it has consistently been fact that if you raise the most money, you're gonna win. And of course, that winning comes with certain strings attached. Well, just look how much more money Kamala raised than Trump. She raised over $1 billion. $1 billion! Compared to $380 million for Donald Trump. Kamala HQ over the past few months, how many times have you guys seen posts like this where they're just bragging about the hundreds of millions of dollars that they've raised? This is a text I got on election day from Barack Obama, and the message was not to go vote, but to donate more money to the Democrats. Also, I don't know why they keep doing this. It's from Barack Obama. We know it's not Barack Obama. Come on, it's some intern or it's a bot. We're not stupid. But anyway, this is insane. And it kind of makes you wonder whether or not they were even trying to win at all. But yeah, Trump just gave us a blueprint. He demonstrated that, sure, yeah, you need a little bit of money to run a campaign, but fundraising for the sake of fundraising is not how you win anymore.
And that makes an interesting point that I want to say, because he has basically kind of in a way turned the page here, because Donald Trump has now proven that, hey, the candidate with the least amount of money can still win. And he's a billionaire. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he's hurting for any money. But I think he kind of proved something here. I mean, if you're looking at the data and if you're thinking about history, it would make sense that Kamala Harris would win because she had the most money. Not only that, look at all the celebrities that came out to stand with her and endorse her. And it was nonstop. Like Kamala, I saw Kamala ads like left and right, like just nonstop Kamala promotion. For the most part, like CNN, Msnbc, all these people were behind her. You know, it was all over social media. Everybody was like joy and coconuts and all that jazz. And she still lost. She still lost. And there was something that James Lee said there that really made me think. It was almost like they weren't really trying to win. And you can do with that whatever you want, but that's something I've wondered too. Remember, Barack Obama did not want Kamala Harris to be handed the nomination. When it was called for Joe Biden to step down, Barack Obama was the one to abstain at first and choosing Kamala Harris and said there should be an open primary. Joe Biden didn't like being pushed out. Joe Biden also didn't like being told what to do, I guess, by Barack Obama at that point. And so Joe Biden decided to jump the gun and say, that's it, I nominate Kamala Harris. It really makes you wonder, especially when you look at the turnout. Now, this is something else I want to mention too. Donald Trump won the popular vote, but Donald Trump received less votes this time around than he did in 2020. And this is why I continue to say a strong candidate could have beaten him. A strong one, not a weak one. Look at the turnout. You got to see this. Shout out to Radical Nation. Restoring faith in America. There are over 18.6 million quiet heroes in America today. That is 12% of 2020 voters who walked away from the duopoly. They voted green or socialist or libertarian, but mostly stayed home. Almost 19% of Democrats, nearly 1 in 5 who turned out in 2020 to defeat Donald Trump, stayed home instead. 4.4% of Republicans stayed home as well. But Democrats walked away at a rate of 5-1 when compared to Republicans. And you guys can see what that looks like here. When we look at the stats here at the bottom, you can see in 2020, down here at the bottom left-hand corner, it shows Biden here, and Joe Biden received over 81 million votes, 81.2 million votes at that point in time. Donald Trump received over 74 million votes at that point in time. But if you fast forward to 2024, what you'll see is that Kamala Harris received 65.8 million votes. So that's a significant difference from what Joe Biden received, right? We got 81.2 million, 65.8 million. That's a big difference. But Donald Trump also received less turnout. This time around, he received 70.9 million. 2020, he received 74.2 million and he lost. Now, there's a couple of factors that can go into this. 2020 was the pandemic. I think more people were angry at that point in time because of everything that was around us during the pandemic, the lockdowns. There was that. People were angry about that. People were angry about the economy, businesses closing, et cetera. And usually when people are upset about the economy, they choose to vote against the incumbent, right? But Donald Trump still received 74.2 million votes. So he received less votes this time around, but he still won the popular vote because Kamala Harris was not able to get to the amount that Joe Biden received. And then some of us would argue maybe Joe Biden received those amounts because a lot of people were at home. Remember what was happening during that time. I'm in Massachusetts. My state was locked down. I didn't really have much going on. Okay. It wasn't much going on here. I was working from home permanently at that point in time. We didn't know how long that was going to last, but it lasted for over a year. So there's that. So people, I think, were in a space where they were paying more attention to what was happening with electoral politics. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Joe Biden was a great candidate. Everyone, please understand that, because that is not what I'm saying. But what it does mean is, given what was happening at that time with the pandemic, businesses closing, people losing their jobs because of the lockdowns, etc., people were like, it's time to turn the page to someone else. So maybe that's why more people participated in 2020. Either way, voters who stayed home, we are looking at, with the Democrats, they lost 15.3 million voters who either voted third party or stayed home. And then when you look at the Republicans, 3.2 million stayed home, right? So we got 18.94% versus 4.39%. What that shows you is that at the end of the day, the Republican voters came out to vote. Yes, less of them showed up than in 2020, but not as few as for the Democratic Party. So that says something as well. And then also, altogether, we're looking at 18.6 million people who decided either not to vote for the duopoly or stayed home, etc. And he still won. So I think, and just keep in mind as well, too, like these were the numbers at that time, but Kamala, let's be real. Kamala Harris, 65.8 million. She's not going to get to 81.2 million. Not at this point in time. The states that they're still working on is Nevada and Arizona. And I think Nevada is almost done. I checked earlier today. I think they were at 91% or something like that. So just keep that in mind. So it really makes you wonder. So we have to get to this question. What happened? I want to dive into this article here called What Just Happened? Making Sense of Democrats' Blowout Loss. And there's something here that happened with Donald Trump that I do want to highlight. We got to get into this discussion about the realignment, because at the end of the day, I think the Democratic Party has been taking certain demographics for granted. And I told you before how they treat Black voters, but it's apparent with these numbers that Latino voters were also feeling some kind of way. So when we get to this part right about here, remember the whole Puerto Rico comments? Remember this? Nor was anger over pro-Trump's comic insult about Puerto Rico enough to help Harris in Northampton, Berks, and Lehigh counties, which has some of the state's largest Puerto Rican communities. So this is interesting. And I think this is also why Democrats may be really upset. I think they really thought that those comments that were said by Tony at Trump's Madison Square Garden event were really going to be enough to mobilize and excite Puerto Rican Americans to come out and vote for Kamala Harris. But it didn't actually turn out that way. And as I predicted, I said that may energize some people, but I don't think that's going to energize the majority of them to come out and support Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? So that did not work in their favor. Then on top of that, Latino voters moved heavily over towards Donald Trump. So it's like the Latino community's response to the Democratic Party for criticizing the comedian. It's like their response was, okay, we're going to go support Trump. And I don't think the Democratic Party can figure this out. Deneen said 15 million Democrat voters voted Couch 2024. Black grassroots strikes again. There you go. And Judd says nobody cares about words anymore. It won't. Action results. Yeah, I just don't think they realized that was probably not going to work for them. But this part here is very important. Look at this. Finally, in blue states, Harris carried. Trump made eye-popping inroads. Trump got about 47% of the vote in New Jersey after receiving 41% there in 2020. In New York, he reduced his loss margin from 23 points in 2020 to 11 points on Tuesday. Guys, this is significant. And in Illinois, the third largest blue state after California and New York, he lost by 8 points, a major improvement over his 17-point defeat in 2020. And this is how he was able to win the popular vote, because he made gains in blue states. He won, I think counties. I have to double check. Districts. He won districts that Joe Biden won. So he was able to come in and flip Biden districts. Like it just, I mean, you really have to have a bad candidate for this to happen. And this is what I told you guys before about Kamala Harris. And I also think the Democratic Party, in a way, I think they were underestimating Donald Trump. And with the comments about, oh, he's a felon. Why would you vote for a felon? We can't have a felon in the White House. And the overuse of that word felon, like I told people, I'm like, that's going to rub some groups the wrong way. But, you know, they didn't want to listen to me. But I think they underestimated him in the beginning. They're like, oh, this is ridiculous. People aren't going to be willing to vote for him again, a third time. But apparently, some groups were willing to flip to him. Check this out from the Owl. This exit poll data is wild. White men, white women, black men, black women, Latino women, all tracking their 2020 numbers very closely. Latino men in 2020, they went 59% for Biden and 36% for Trump. Latino men in 2024, 45% for Harris and 53% for Donald Trump. This is a huge shift from Democrat plus 23 to Republican plus 28. And why do you think that is, ladies and gentlemen? Why do you think more Latinos voted for Donald Trump this time around? My guess probably says immigration. That's my guess if I had to make a guess. And I want to show you something that happened in Wisconsin as well. This is very interesting because it's not just Latino. Look at this. So in 2016, we're going to compare 2016 because also Donald Trump's running mate was a female. I want to prove a point. 2016 exit polls for Wisconsin. Donald Trump received, when we're looking at the racial demographics here, he received 6% of the black vote in Wisconsin. 6%. Okay. Hillary Clinton received 92%, which is what we're used to seeing, right? And then when it comes to race and gender, Donald Trump received 8% of the black male vote. Hillary Clinton received 90%. However, when we fast forward to 2024, let's go to Wisconsin. I want to show you something. What has changed? This time around in Wisconsin, Donald Trump received 22% of the black vote. I'm going to say this again. In 2024, Donald Trump received 22% of the black vote in Wisconsin. Now, most black Americans in Wisconsin live in Milwaukee. And another thing that I was reading about as well was that for whatever reason, Milwaukee did not show up for Kamala Harris that way. Now, I don't know if that means she just didn't campaign enough there. I know she was campaigning in Wisconsin, but they did not show up for her the way they did for Joe Biden. And then when we look at sex by race, oh, they don't have that one yet for the black men. Oh, they don't have the black men one yet. But for black people in Wisconsin, 22%. 22% compared to where he was in 2016. And he received 6%. So that's a big difference. And it's a swing state. So something happened with Kamala Harris's campaign in Milwaukee. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. But now there's more. Because when we look at the exit polls for 2016 for the national race, we'll see something else too. I just want to make a point. In the national race, Donald Trump received 8% of the vote from black people. So 8% of the black vote, Donald Trump, 2016. Hillary Clinton, 89%. Right? Now that doesn't sound alarming, right, guys? But in 2024, let's see how he did this time around. This is the part that's really interesting. Let me make sure I'm on the national one. Yeah, okay. In 2024, when it comes to the black vote, Donald Trump received 13% of the black vote. So was there this huge gain for Donald Trump with black voters, like across the board, like 25, 35%? Nationally, no, but he did increase it. He went from 8% to 13%. He's Republican. We don't usually see that. And if you look at some of the swing states, if you look at states like Georgia, if you look at some of these other states, you'll also see, in fact, let's see if we can look at Georgia real quick. I just want to check something. Because something that I noticed is that he did make other gains with black voters in other states. Why does this go all the way to the bottom? NBC, I'm gonna need you to do better. Okay? Can you do better? Thank you. Okay. In Georgia, this time around, Donald Trump received 12% of the black vote. When I look at sex by race, Donald Trump received 16% of the black male vote. These are all improvements. So again, there was something about him and his campaign in particular that did attract demographics that usually would vote Democrat. So no, it's not like he got this large margin, but he increased it. Now, when we look at Latino, and actually we'll go back to the national one here. Where did I go? I don't know why it's doing this. Okay. Okay. When we look at the national demographics, right? For Latino, Donald Trump, 46% Latino went to Donald Trump. 46%. And then if we look at sex by race, we will see he received 55% of the Latino male vote. It's right here. I hope you guys can see my cursor. 55% of the Latino male vote. 38% of the Latino woman vote. And then all other races, which I'm assuming is that must include those who are biracial, those who are indigenous, but all other races outside of white, black, Latino, 46%. Guys, we don't usually see this. I think the last Republican president that I remember that did well with the Latino community was George W. Bush. And I don't even know if he had those numbers. So this says something. And the Democratic Party, and I have to say this as well. David said Sabby forgot Asian as the other. I thought they listed Asian. Did they not list Asian Americans here? Did they not list Asian? Oh, okay. I see what they did. They listed Asian up here, but they did not list Asian when they went to sex by race. Thank you for that, Danny. You're right. All of the races Asian as well. But this says something, and the Democratic Party needs to figure some things out. Because you can sit back here and you can point fingers at the Latinos who decided to vote for Donald Trump all you want to, but that says less about those voters and more about your party. What would make them want to opt away from the Democrats that they've historically been voting for? And I say, there are some Latinos that are conservative, but why is Donald Trump getting those gains? And I would say number one is immigration. There seems to be this belief with a lot of people that if someone immigrated to this country, then they're going to be more willing and more open to, migrants coming in or people not being able to come here the legal way, the way that they did, right? That's actually not the case. When I've spoken to people that have immigrated to this country, particularly Latino Americans, they actually are not happy about that. Most of them will tell you like, no, that's not fair. I had to go through a process. How come they don't have to go through a process? So the border, I think that's a big issue. And then also probably the economy. These are big things. Like, and I can tell people over and over again, I don't know how many times I have to say this to people over and over again. But the reality is, there is something about him that people do like. And the fact that, if anything, after everything that has happened with Donald Trump and the Democratic Party, if anything, he shouldn't have made gains with those groups. If the Biden-Harris administration had done such a great job, he shouldn't have made those gains. That's the point I want to get across to people. The reason why he was able to make those gains is because the Biden-Harris administration did not do a good job. People have to wake up to this. And I think that the Democratic Party needs to wake up to this as well. And then there's this. There is a shift with the Republican Party when it comes to war. And listen to the way they discuss this. This is hilarious. Shout out to Case Study QB, who clipped a ton of clips. Case Study clipped a ton of clips over the past week. Listen to this.
I think if you are trying to find a single reason why Donald Trump has overperformed with younger voters relative to past elections for Republicans, I think the divide I see in polls around foreign policy and the role of America in the world is no longer a left-right divide. It is a younger, older divide. If you are under the age of 40, you don't remember a time when America projecting its power in the world led to anything good. And so Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, when they get up and they talk about, warmongers, and they sound like they're Code Pink people from 2004, we've had a complete inversion of the way we talk about America in the world, the use of the military, et cetera. It's totally a generational divide, and the parties have completely flipped.
Well, just one small thing to add to that. I was really struck at the Madison Square Garden rally. You had the Republican crowd cheering for people criticizing the Patriot Act and criticizing the Iraq War, which the RNC had been held at Madison Square Garden just 20 years before.
I think
so. That is really interesting there. Also, it's interesting the way that they talk about war. There's like, well, the parties have flipped. Like, well, you really shouldn't be out there promoting war anyway. So there's that. But that is another reality. Now, again, I still don't consider Trump to be anti-war, especially considering some of the things that he said around Gaza. But I will say, under his presidency, he didn't start new wars, but he did, continued to bomb Syria just like Obama did. He implemented coups in Venezuela. So we can't pretend like those things did not happen. But I think what is happening when it comes to the war rhetoric is what people are hearing from him is this war with Russia and Ukraine would have never happened. This situation, the genocide, all this stuff that's taking place in the Middle East would have never happened if I was still president. And that's what people hear, like when he says those things. So that's another thing. I think that's another reason why he may have done well this time. This time he got the popular vote and the electoral college. People are tired of the wars. People are tired of tax dollars going to, people are done and tired of that. So the Republican Party has changed. The Republican Party has now basically become the Trump Party. We saw this with Nikki Haley, guys. Nikki Haley was not able to do well in the GOP primary. A lot of the votes that Nikki Haley got came from independents, not from registered Republicans. So the Republican Party has changed. The Republican Party that I grew up knowing was like the George Bush and the George W. Bush Republican Party. And that's not the way it is anymore post Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was actually able to change the Republican Party and get it to bend to his will. Isn't this exactly what we wanted the Democrats to do? The Justice Democrats? Isn't this exactly what we wanted AOC and Cori Bush and Bernie Sanders and all of them to do to the Democratic Party? Isn't this what, didn't we ask them to go in there and have a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party? And it didn't happen. And then there's just this reality. Kamala Harris was not a strong candidate. Not a strong candidate.
Let's be honest. Harris was not a strong candidate. She just wasn't.
Now you tell us.
You
didn't tell us that last week.
Did I? Well, wait. I wasn't here last week.
The week before.
I think we've talked for a long time on this broadcast about
we
how
put
difficult it is.
We put a lot of lipstick on that candidate. I mean, that's a bad expression to use in this case. But we dressed her up. The mainstream media.
Just being straight here, did I expect a sweeping victory like this from Trump? No, I didn't. I thought it was going to be extremely close. Mm-hmm. now that you see the magnitude of the victory, you cannot conclude anything else.
Well, I agree.
She was a
I've always thought
candidate.
that.
Honestly speaking, 2 days ago, I would have said she's a really reasonably good candidate.
How? You've seen her word salad. You've seen her not answer questions. You know, we had no idea what she stood for.
Well, in any event, I think we can make a judgment now that she wasn't a strong candidate.
I don't think you need hindsight.
And
you could have seen that coming.
And I think we all knew that, right? Like, we knew she wasn't a strong candidate. And she's done this before. Like, she's ran for president before. It's not like this is a new thing. But the Democratic Party needs to go back to the drawing board, and they need to figure some things out, because the reality is your party's dying. Let's go to some of the comments in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do the damn thing. Peter says Sabby was prophetic in her analysis. I don't know if it was prophetic. I just looked at the data, and I looked at a lot of data. That's what I told you guys. Like, I would go to sleep at night and my eyes would see polls. What's up, Jonathan? Hey, Sabby, I know it's been a while, but I've been watching. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Troy. Imagine thinking you ate something. I am speaking. Imagine thinking you ate saying I am speaking. Thank you, Silvio Pina. Thank you for your election guidance all these months. Oh, you are welcome. Shout out to Cool Blue. Yes, a 2024 Republican trifecta predicted it. Yes, you did, Cool Blue. Hopefully you'll join us on Call-In tonight. Shout out to Mike. Well, hey, Kamala said it best. Weeping endured for a night, but joy. I got to say it like her. Weeping endured for a night, but joy cometh in the morning when she lost. Yep. Thank you, Troy. So happy it's over. Ain't you tired, Kamala? Shout out to Juanita. I think Joe Biden intentionally sabotaged Kamala. Ooh, burn. Hold on to that one, Juanita. Hold on to that one. Eric, let's try to keep that one up there. Let's try to keep that one in the mix. Shout out to Jay, 2016. Hillary doesn't address the crowd at the Javits Center in NYC. 2024. Kamala doesn't address the crowd at Howard University. Coincidence? Garuda, you can't buy a personality. Thank you, New York Varsity. Kamala had celebs, big tech, Hollywood, elite athletes, night show hosts, and a nomination by selection. She lost to the internet, which costs nothing. Burn. All the burns coming out tonight. Thank you, Juliet. Regrets about 5%, but glad Kamala lost. Thanks for your coverage. Thank you so much, Juliet. I agreed. Thank you, Brown. The people have spoken and gave a middle finger to the machine. This is encouraging for independent candidates. Thanks, Jay. I watched the Duran today, and they read a super chat from a secret Trump voter. No sign, no political discussions, nothing. This may be what did it. Yeah, but I thought the pollsters said that they adjusted for the secret Trump pollers. I thought that's what they said, but I don't know, dude. Thank you, Sebastian. Will Democrats stop the steal? Thanks, Chelsea. D Party really thought they could replace the left and working class with white Republican women. Right? Like, they really wanted to replace it with Liz Cheney. Thank you, Omar. It was a plan nor to have a primary because of Bernie running. Not to have a primary because Bernie running. Thank you, Cool Blue. In 2020, Biden won U.S. popular vote by plus 7 million in raw vote margin. Although 2024 numbers are not complete, Trump appears to have shifted over plus 6 million combined from the U.S. top 10 populous states. Things are changing, fam. Thank you, New York. Monolithic nightmare. Telling Latinos they will improve immigration. Telling Black people weed will be legal. One step removed from 50-cent sodas. Thank you, Lawn Guy. But Sabby, is Kamala still speaking? No. And then the woman from Mad TV? No. Thank you, Cool Blue. In 2020, 13% of all votes were cast by Blacks. In 2024 exit poll, Sabby showed reports 11%. Depending on total votes cast for POTUS, 5 million or more Black people may have declined to vote. awaiting final numbers. Yeah, I want to see that too. Like how many Black voters chose to stay at home. Thank you, Troy. Gen Z are not willing to go to war. Love that. There it is. Thanks, Squared Away. Trump is a fake populist, but his rhetoric is far superior to the Democrats. Trump voters were motivated by economy and immigration, not racism and sexism. Ooh, we got so many slow burns. Thank you, GB. Word on the street is Kamala's campaign is over $20 million in debt. Yikes. Thank you, Sword of Truth. The consultants made a ton of money. You bet they did. Thanks, Lawn Guy. Juan Grotto declares Kamala is still speaking. I'm sure he does. Thank you, Janine. Technically, I don't know what happened. Technically, the Dems got there first. First Black selected to run for president to lose. Janine has jokes. And thank you, Noah. Trump put his people in the voting booths in swing states to rig the polls. It's something that needs to be addressed. Really, Noah? Ooh, do tell. What do you know about this, Noah? Are you going to be on call-in? Can we talk about this on call-in? Let me know. Let me know what's up. Okay. Yeah. And we're going to move on to the next story really quick. Smash that like button. Thank you. And we're going to dive into this story, which is crazy. So because Kamala Harris did not win, and MSNBC, The View, CNN painted them as like their Democrat darling, they are having a serious case of meltdowns. And the first one that we're going to get into is from The View, about identity politics. Of course, Sonny Hostin had to take it there. You know, people can't reject Kamala Harris because her policies are bad, and we really don't think that she would be good for the job. It has to be about identity. Let's dive in here. Of course, I shared this on Twitter because I was like, oh my God.
I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. Mm-hmm. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country. I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. Mm-hmm. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment.
Cultural resentment. So let me ask you a question. Didn't this country elect Barack Obama twice? Didn't this country vote for Barack Obama twice? Was that, were people having cultural resentment then? No. What? A woman who is biracial and has a Jewish husband. This is why the Democratic Party is failing. This is why the Democratic Party is in the mud. This is why the Democratic Party has been having, over the past couple of years, a slow, sad, painful death. And now they're pretty much in the grave. You guys have chosen to focus just on identity. It's all about woman of this, man of that, first this, first that. He's black and she's black and everybody's bliggity black, black, black. And that is supposed to be enough to make people come out and vote for them. That's all we're supposed to care about. We're not supposed to ask about no damn policy. Steve Harvey told us, don't ask Kamala for anything. D.L. Hughley told you, don't you dare sit up there and criticize Kamala Harris. Leave that black woman alone. The Democratic Party has chosen to rely on identity politics to get them over the finish line. And we are living in a new era where you actually have to have policies, right? The economy is bad. People want more for themselves. People can't buy homes. People can't achieve the American dream. So you can't just show up with, I am this color, so you need to pick me because I'm this color. Jesus Louise. It gets worse. Because now they're trying to tell you Whoopi goes off and she wants to know, I don't know what she could have done.
Aside from buck naked dancing on the top of the table, I don't know what else she could have done.
I don't think she could have done more. I think she left it all out on the field. I think she raised $1 billion in 3 months. I think that she ran a flawless campaign, and I maintain that. I think now it's the time for us to work.
Aside from buck naked dancing on the top of the table, I don't know what else she could have done.
I don't think she could have done more. I think she left it all out on the field. I think she raised $1 billion in 3 months. I think that she ran a flawless campaign, and I maintain that. I think now it's.
So she did everything that she could have done. Did you hear that, guys? Everything that she could have done. She didn't offer a $15 minimum wage or living wage. My goal was a living wage. She didn't offer that. She didn't meet the demands of Muslim voters. She told you right there on The View, Sonny and Whoopi, that she wouldn't have done anything different than Joe Biden. Really? I don't think there's anything else that she could have done. I mean, she had Beyonce, she had Oprah, all these things. Total meltdown, man. Don't want to put any blame on Kamala Harris. Don't want to put any blame on her. And then it gets even worse because we go over to Morning Joe. And now, listen, Latino dudes, they coming for you. The same way they used to come after black people, they were coming after black men, shaming them. They coming for you now. They coming for you.
Say, Rev, really quickly, too. Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. It's misogyny from Hispanic men. Right. It's misogyny from black men. Things we've all.
See, everybody hearing this? You see what it is? It's everybody's fault but Kamala Harris. Everyone is a misogynist. Everyone is a racist. Jesus Christ.
I've been talking about who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before. A lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates. Right.
So everybody see what's happening here, right? Now, if you are watching and you are Hispanic, how does that make you feel? Does that make you want to go vote for the Democratic Party? It wouldn't want to make me go vote for the Democratic Party, just like when they shamed black men and Obama said, the problem is you brothers. Pretty sure that didn't make you want to go. I don't know what. Joe, shut up. Shut up, Joe. Be quiet. First, just a couple of days ago, Joe Scarborough was telling people about Trump voters. He said, who raised these people? So he didn't went from these people to Latino men and black men. These men are misogynist. This is what I think Nina Turner meant when she said that the Democratic Party emasculates men.
And with other Hispanics, you got some that don't like each other. And some of the most misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely right. It's not simplistic. And we've got to have real honest conversations about it.
They mad because of these numbers, fam. They mad because Donald Trump went from 32% of Latino voter support to 45% of Latino voter support. And you know what makes this really bad is that you got to have Al Sharpton. Let me get this. Okay, let me get there. Okay. So Joe Scarborough was sitting up there and he's bashing Hispanic men. Then he also starts to bash black men, misogynists. Here we go with black men again. I don't think this is helping you, Democrats. And what kills me is Al Sharpton sitting right there. Al Sharpton doesn't push back or anything like that. No, Al Sharpton actually joins into the discussion and says, yeah, these black men on the campaign trail, they used to say this and this. What the hell is wrong with you, Al? Al loves that NBC check. He loves that MSNBC check. This is terrible. This is terrible. And you throwing them all under the bus. they're so classist. So classist. And then it gets worse because I gotta tell you, it just, everybody is melting down, but they don't want to point any fingers at Kamala Harris, right? It's none of her fault. Don't you dare point a finger at her. Don't you dare say she ran a bad campaign. Now you'll see on this panel here with Van Jones, now they are going to use the excuse of not giving enough support to Israel. Like, I can't even make these things up, man. Like, people just come up with the most ridiculous, oh my God.
And I think there was this very powerful ad, the Republican Jewish Coalition, that was all over the airwaves. A bunch of women sitting around, Jewish women, just saying, I can't stand him, but I felt like we were supporting Israel and we were stronger and we were tougher. And I think that resonates with people.
And then to your point, the ad that came out that was beating Kamala up around fear about Israel not being protected. There was never a response from the campaign on that, which I thought was a big mistake. Amanda Berman from Zioness had to raise money, run her own ads trying to fight back alone. That didn't work. So, but listen, you tied her to the economy, you tied her to Biden, you tied her to weird, and it was not a good
I agree with everything you're saying. I just didn't want to engage in the autopsy before before we've called the race and before she dropped out. But, one thing on that, the answer on, I can't think of anything offhand about where she would differ with Biden, was disastrous, and there's no doubt about it. The question is what motivated it and whether she just felt she did not want to.
Loyalty.
Yes, loyalty. And so she should have just said, look, I'm grateful to him. I'm proud of many of the things we did together, and I'm not going to critique him. I'm talking about the future. Would have been a better answer. But, it's easy to be on the sidelines.
Around Jewish women just saying.
Shout out to Drop Site News for sharing this clip. But Van Jones right here, right? So now it's all of a sudden Kamala Harris lost because she didn't get enough support from Jewish voters. Like, they're literally going to sit here on this panel and pretend like Kamala Harris didn't lose the Muslim vote. Kamala Harris lost the Muslim vote. And they're going to say, oh, no, she lost the Muslim vote. This is why she lost Michigan. It's clear as day, but they don't want to say it. And Van Jones, he's just such a kiss ass. Van Jones, wants to just be on every program and still wants to be in the scene and in the right circles. Van Jones know what this is about. So it's, oh, she, didn't have enough Jewish voters come out for her. No, she lost the Muslim vote. That is essentially why she lost Michigan. And that's part of the reason why she lost Pennsylvania. People forget Michigan and Pennsylvania. Michigan, largest Arab American population. Pennsylvania, also, I think maybe second or third largest Arab American Muslim population. They know this was part of the reason why she lost certain states. And instead they're going to say, oh, she, the Jewish voters, I guess, just felt like, she didn't support them enough. Get out of here. But it's not just CNN and Msnbc. Then you got Majority Report and Emma Vigland, honey, I got to say. Emma Vigland was trolling people for months on Twitter, telling people that all the polls that said Trump was in the lead were false. Emma Vigland was one of the people that said she's going to win Iowa. All those people that were like, she's going to win Iowa off of that one poll. Emma Vigland is also melting down in her meltdown corner.
One thing I'll just get a little emotional about is it does, as a woman, feel pretty shitty. I feel like the humanity of women and their rights, no one cares. And even in the face of Trump and everything that he represented, that's a tough pill to swallow. One thing I'll just get a little emotional about is it does, as a woman, feel pretty shitty. I feel like the humanity of women and their rights, no one cares.
Oh my God. Look, let me make something very clear. I was not happy about the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I understand, I've known people who personally have had to have abortions. I was not happy about the overturn of it. That being said, I also realized it's not a number one issue for most voters. And I think people like Emma Vigland, what they don't seem to understand, because Emma Vigland comes from a wealthy family. And I think when you grow up a certain way, it's like you're in like this ivory tower, white elite bubble. And so in your mind, because of the world that you grew up in, you're thinking, because it's a number one issue for you, that it's a number one issue for all women. And that is not the case. These are the types of things that I really have to send this message to a lot of like upper class liberals, in particular, white women who are upper class liberals. You have to start to understand that sometimes what's a number one issue to you, to a lot of other women, especially those of lower class to you, is not their number one issue. Their number one issue is the economy. Their number one issue is keeping the lights on, paying the bills, like those types of things. So when Emma says, I feel like they don't care about women, I didn't feel that way. I just felt it wasn't a number one issue for most voters. That's how I felt. And I still feel that way. And I tried to say this over and over again. Running on Roe v. Wade is not a number one issue for most people. It also may alienate some people, some men. You guys, for the men in the chat, how do you feel about this? Because if I was a dude and there's this candidate and now they started talking about the economy at first, and then they switched to this whole freedom Roe v. Wade thing. And if I were a guy, I don't know if that's really my place. Because how would that affect me? How does that concern? You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean just because people voted for Donald Trump doesn't mean they don't care about women. Just because someone voted for Donald Trump doesn't mean they're racist. I don't know how many times we got to say this. This guy been running since 2016. Why do we have to keep repeating this? Do people like Emma not realize some people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 voted for Obama? I know, Notori. Notori said you tried to tell them, but they told you to shut the F up. Yeah, I tried to, and it's just, now we got all these tears. People like Emma Vigland and, the snooty, old left commentator peeps. I mean, old by age, but the old school left media and stuff. Like a lot of these people look down their nose at me when I tried to tell them these very same things 2-3 years ago. Who are you? I mean, like, it just, the meltdowns for me just did. And then there's Simone Sanders, because it gets cuckoo and cuckooer. Simone Sanders is not just upset that Kamala lost. She's mad because Joe Biden was removed from the race. It doesn't even get crazier than this, folks.
Yes. But I do have an indictment of some of the strategy. And again, the people that said Joe Biden was the problem. Where's my camera?
He was not the solution. He was not the solution.
I will just note that it is probably not the best idea that Democrats orchestrated a very public stab fest, a proverbial stabbing in the front of the sitting president of the United States of America, and then didn't use him in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. I will defer to Mr. Lemire. But I do have an indictment of some of the strategy. And again, the people that said Joe Biden was the problem. Where's my camera?
He was not the solution.
He was not the solution. Whoever that is in the background saying that. So Simone Sanders, to me, just feels like, why do you continue to kiss up to Joe Biden? Simone Sanders wanted to be Joe Biden's press secretary when she was working on his campaign, right? And he chose Jen Psaki instead. And she said she was hurt that she wasn't chosen. So I guess as like some consolation prize, they gave her this MSNBC gig, right? So she got that gig and did her own thing. And for whatever reason, ever since then, it seems like she feels like she constantly has to kiss up to Joe Biden, kiss his ass. Like, this is really giving me massive. Oh, Massa, I love you. I love you. I can't live without you. Oh, Massa. That's what it reminds me of. It's giving me Django vibes or something. Like, I can't get past this. You do not constantly have to come in and defend this man. 2, Joe Biden is not in any shape or form to continue to be president of this country right now, let alone in the future. Simone Sanders knows this. 3, you weren't saying all this back when Kamala Harris was selected to be the nominee. See, everybody got things to say now. But when Kamala was selected at that point in time, you guys were quiet. You were like, oh, let's just go along. Yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be good. Now, all of a sudden, now you want to do a show. Where's my camera? Can we go to part 2? Type V and see Eric. It's laughable. It's hilarious to me. Like, I can't make this up, fam. I can't make this up. Let's see if we can go to Eric. Can we go to part 2? Is this part 2? I don't know if Eric's. Oh, I think this is. I don't know if I'm on part 2 or not. Okay. So that's one part. Okay. We're not done yet. We're still not done yet. Here's another one talking about Pollsters' reaction to the election results after predicting she wouldn't win. So listen to this. It just, I can't, oh my God. Woo.
That's why my prediction system with a 40+ year track record predicts that Kamala Harris will be a new path-breaking president, the first woman president, and the first president of mixed African and Asian descent.
But on election night, during a live stream of results, Lichtman's tune changed, casting doubt on his own prediction.
Trump is winning 51% of the Hispanic vote in Pennsylvania.
What?
That's what CNN is showing right now.
How's that possible? The world is turned upside down. That's all I can say. Is that better?
Up to the eve of the election, there was one pollster creating all the buzz. Ann Seltzer, who boldly predicted deep red Iowa would go to Kamala Harris, saying Harris would beat Trump by 3 points. On election night, Trump carried the state with about a 13% margin. That poll the former president mocked on the campaign trail.
The polls are just as corrupt as some of the writers back there. They can make those polls sing. They can make them sing. They brag about it. I got a poll, I'm 10 points up in Iowa. One of my enemies just puts out a poll, I'm 3 down. A fake poll. Hey, think of it. Right before the election, that I'm 3 points out. I'm not down in Iowa.
Seltzer told the Des Moines Register late Tuesday night, the poll findings we produced for the Des Moines Register and Mediacom did not match what the Iowa electorate ultimately decided in the voting booth today. I'll be reviewing data from multiple sources with hopes of learning why that happened.
So Alan Lichtman, we could see the woman who came up with that one poll that liberals just jumped on and said, this is the one that says that she wins, right? But Alan Lichtman, who was cracking me up, remember, he is the Nostradamus of presidential elections, and he predicted that Kamala will win, and I just didn't agree with it. I said it's possible she could, but I didn't think that this was going to, I thought Trump had a better chance, and I thought she was the underdog in this race. And it's not just him. I mean, it's Cenk Uygur. He also had a meltdown.
These Democratic leaders are simpletons. They're servants of the donor class. So they go in there like, oh, donor, give me money, please. And I made an ad. I'm Kamala Harris. I'm full of joy. Okay, well, what did that get you? And they say, oh, Jake, you're too angry. Too angry? What? You think, does Donald Trump look like he's kind? Does he look like he's in a good mood? I mean, no, people want some sort of reaction from their politicians. They want them to represent them, to fight for them. But that has never occurred to a Democrat outside of Bernie Sanders, and probably we never will. So I have no interest in listening to a single Democratic politician ever again.
Yeah, you will. Don't get me wrong. We've seen these meltdowns from Cenk Uygur before. He'll listen to them again. In fact, next election cycle, he'll be telling you to vote for the Democrat. So I don't understand why he was so angry, because he endorsed Kamala Harris as many times as he went on to Piers Morgan's show, arguing with people about Zionism and supporting Palestinian struggle. And I totally agree with that. and totally support that. In the end, he went on to Twitter and told everybody, I'm going to support and vote for Kamala Harris. And people were eating him up in the comments. So it just, you can tell this was a bad campaign.
They can go kiss my ass. They can do whatever they want. And we never listen to them anyway. And they hate us because we're right and they're wrong. They're always wrong. And they hate us for being right. Okay? So, but they're not going to learn. You have to beat them in a primary. That's your only hope. And so if you say it's super hard to beat them in a primary because of the lying sons of bitches on mainstream media who will smear you to no end, who will fight harder against progressives and populists than Republicans or Donald Trump or anyone else, well, brothers and sisters, nobody said life was fair. So we got to go fight that mainstream media. We got to destroy that mainstream media that is filled with lies on top of lies about how the politicians are so honest and the donors have no control over policy. They have 100% control over policy. Everyone in mainstream media is a liar.
I hope you guys have some fun on this show. Everyone in mainstream media is a liar. They are, but Cenk Uygur, you still supported and voted for those same politicians who have those big money donors that you complain about. So you're just very much a part of that system.
Who goes, oh, well, here's a bill. Well, I'm not going to talk about the donors at all. I think they're having an ideological debate. Oh, look at that. The donor class won the ideological debate again, but I won't call them the donor class. I won't tell you that it's corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats that are playing good cop and bad cop against you the entire time. So these Democratic leaders are the most useless people on earth. If they're not all fired, the Democratic Party is out of its mind. So as the voters, you have to understand, those guys have a vested interest in protecting their own ass and protecting their money and their privilege and their status. You need to fire them. They're not going to fire themselves. You think Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Kamala Harris, and all these people go, oh yeah, I guess Jamie Harrison and Dancy, oh yeah, I guess we were the problem. You think the Democratic consultant class that have been robbing you blind this entire time is going to go, oh, I guess we were the problem. No, you have to fire them. So the next time that some son of a bitch on MSNBC or in the Democratic Party tells you, oh no, be a good boy and girl, be civil, and vote for Democratic leaders. They know what they're doing. Those are the same goddamn liars that told you that Joe Biden was totally fine, that he was young and he was dynamic behind the scenes, and it wasn't a problem at all. At that point, he was down 8 points nationally. He was getting slaughtered. He was down by 18 in Iowa, and I could go on and on. They've been lying to you the whole time. If you're on the left, you're a Democratic voter. Wakey, wakey. I need to wake you up out of the hypnosis that you're in, that Morning Joe and The View and all of mainstream media has put you in. They're lying to you. Why do you think they keep losing?
You put people in that predicament too, Cenk, because you tell them to vote for the same people. You tell them to vote for the same people. You know, there was a candidate that had a real left agenda, and that was Jill Stein. And you didn't tell your viewers to get behind Jill Stein because she had those solid policies that you're talking about. You told them, oh, we got to go for Kamala because otherwise we're going to get Donald Trump. So you'll be doing the same thing too, bud. You do the same thing.
You think they keep telling you how smart they are and how they're going to deliver you victories. And all they ever do is deliver loss after loss after loss. So Democratic voters, snap out of it. These guys are obvious liars. Fire them all. Fire them all. And if you don't, okay, then keep losing to buffoons, to obvious con men like Donald Trump. Keep losing and losing and losing and never figuring it out. Here, I solved it for you. I figured it out. It's a goddamn corruption. All the stupid donor money, all it's ever done is lead to more losses. So if you don't fire them, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Fire them all. So epic meltdown there for our Cenk Uygur again. But like I said, he was voting for Kamala Harris. So there's that as well. And then there's also this obsession over how white women voted. And Margaret Kimberly really nailed this. She said, dear liberals, please stop the obsession with how white women vote. The last Democrat to get a majority of the white vote was Lyndon Johnson in 1964. Most white people have been voting Republican for the last 60 years. Get over yourselves and figure out how to win elections. Bam. That's what I'm talking about, because Margaret Kimberly lays it out. And I've seen it left and right. That's another one. Everybody's like, the white women didn't come out for Kamala. White women, why didn't you do this? Why? But according to the data, what Margaret Kimberly just laid out there, it's very telling there that obviously since 1964. So why are people expecting? Everybody is looking for someone to blame except for Kamala Harris. And then there were 2 videos that were sent my way about people just epically melting down on TikTok. Good grief.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Do you really hate me that bad? I'm sorry. No. Why? Do you really hate me that bad?
I like, part of me feels like I shouldn't laugh, but it's just, I feel like people are just so out of touch, man. This guy too. Now he has on a t-shirt that says "White Dudes for Harris." And this was another cringe thing that her campaign did. I never agreed with this. I never agreed with people separating in all these different groups. It was like white women for Harris. Okay, white women, it's time for us to use our white woman privilege and help Kamala get elected. I was like, is this for real? Like, what is that? What kind of crazy shit is this? I never agreed with people separating into all those different groups, saying white dudes for Harris, white, women for Harris, black men for Harris. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, it just, but he melts down.
I can't believe Trump's actually going to win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so pissed off. Fuck. God damn it. I can't believe Trump's actually going to win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so pissed off. Fuck. God damn it.
I don't know what to say other than, like, look, dude, I think if people would have gotten out of their bubbles, I don't think that they would have been surprised about the turnout. I think if people would leave their echo chambers and they talk to people who are on the other side politically, I think they wouldn't have been surprised about the way the election turned out. Roger says fat dudes for Harris. Oh my God. This doesn't know what to say. I'm trying not to look at some of the comments because it's okay. Croc said, is Tim Walz the worst VP pick of all time? You know what? Let's discuss that on call-in. I don't really know. Like, there have been worse. There was this guy named Dan Quayle at one point, and he became more famous because I think he misspelled tomato or something. It was either tomato or potato. Thank you, Michael. Or Mike, excuse me. Kamala better go sell some collard green trays to make back what she lost. Thank you, Zoe. It had everything to do with policy. 15 million stayed home. Thanks, Sparky. MEK Stooge. Rudy Giuliani lied about Reagan, saying we should always have Israel's back. In fact, Reagan figuratively told Israel to F off in a major way at least twice during his presidency. Thank you, Lawn Guy. It seems like every election, there's a new smart guy who's predicted every election that the media digs up that we're told has a crystal ball. It's a good point. Shout out to James LaFrance. James LaFrance for becoming a Sabby member. Give James a big whoop whoop. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron. I'm in a silly mood tonight, guys. Blickety black. You made me LMAO. Thanks, Sabby. Thank you, Odd Wise. You're on fire, Sabby. Hold them accountable. My comrade JB, Sabs, also remember that many Trump voters also voted for Obama. That's right. So that debunks Sonny's point. Thank you, Sparky. Fun fact, both Ukraine and Israel have taxpayer-funded healthcare. American taxpayers. This is true. Thanks, Squared Away. To break it only down to identity is disingenuous. She lost her base because she supports genocide like Joe, and she offers no solutions. Pathetic. Thanks, Cool Blue. D's and their media allies will never look in a mirror. D's are not an actual political party. As a person described them, D's are a corporate fundraiser. That's right. Thank you. Her name is Chris. Mainstream is so tone deaf and making excuses for a Dem candidate who didn't answer straight questions or respond to pushback isn't surprising. Wait till 2028. What's up, New York Varsity? Sabs, I am getting the same vibe that a previous commenter posted. I'm sad Trump won, but joyous that Harris lost. Anybody else? Yeah. Thank you, Sparky. Keep in mind, Israel has killed many more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS Liberty. Thanks, China. They thought suburban white women hated Trump, but suburban white women cared more for feeding their kids and to afford their children school and sport activities. Thank you, 72 Marshflower. Whoopi is politically illiterate enough to think that the Borg were a collective Star Trek, so it shouldn't be a surprise she'd fall for another false narrative. The terms as we know them are backwards. A Trekkie in the house. Thanks, Richard. Sabby, I'm a Mexican-American leftist male, old school. Why you won't have a Latino guest on your show? What's up with that? Are you asking to come on, Richard? Because I've had people of all different races and ethnicity on this show. If you're asking to come on, just say you want to come on. Just keep it real, Richard. Thank you, Brian. She should have pulled a Patrice Woodbine from P Valley and get on a pole on the back of the truck. God. Thank you, Sparky. Love you, Sabby. Oh, love you. Thanks, Jasmine. That MSNBC panel disgusted me. I can't wait for a greater Black voter exodus from the Democratic Party. Thanks, Snatch Adams. Tell Morning Joe and Al Sharpton it was me. Hail Hydra, Hail Hydra, Hail Hydra. Oh, that's from Marvel? I want to say that's from Marvel. Tell them it was me. Thank you, Troy. Hamsters eating their own. Justice for Peanut/Fred. Oh, I saw the thing about the squirrel. Thank you, Sparky. Sabby, keep Mike Pompeo, Tom Cotton, and Lindsey Graham away from Trump. Thank you, Cool Blue. 2024 CNN exit poll nationally and party ID. 31% Dem, 35% Republican, 34% Indy. Dems normally are even with Republicans. Sometimes say 37%. Content like MSNBC is for that 31%. Good point. Thank you, Samud. Emma is like Anna on TYT. Barf. Thanks, Brian. Are they going to blame the Amish community yet? Ooh, that's a good question. Thanks, Raven. These fools couldn't handle being Black. Thanks, Samud. As a white woman, I don't claim her. Thank you, Apartarum. Emma and her ilk are no friends to Black people. Thank you, New York Varsity. She is rich, just like the GOP. If she wants an abortion, she will get one. 2 words, Henry Cuellar, and Democrat, pro-life, elected by the DNC. Yeah, buddy. Thank you, Tamed Chaos. Man here, sick of hearing about it, especially when the family court systems are screwed. R.E. children. Thanks, R. Bailey. Rich of Democrats to incite a race war to defend a bad candidacy. T says, that's how I found you on the Hill. You kept it real. Oh, thank you. And thanks, Z360. Kamala was too busy being a mouthpiece for the donor class. That is why she lost. She lost because she didn't differentiate herself from Biden policies. Thank you so much for everything, Sabs. You are welcome. And thank you, Hi Young. Joe Biden looks to be in a good mood. LOL. He was smiling today. Thanks, Brian. The humanity of women and their rights. Translation, the humanity of women and their rights to turn their backs on the humanity and rights of Palestinian women. Well said. Shout out to Farron, who's been a member for a month. Remember all those people complaining about the conservative polls dumped in at last minute skewing it, they were all accurate. Thanks, Cool Blue. Dems, abortion, and Republicans, guns. Win some, not all elections. Thanks, Jake. Love you. Love. Thank you, Sab, for keeping our eyes open. I am trying. Etoily, David Pakman was having a meltdown because he lost 10,000 followers after the election. I haven't watched David Pakman in a long time, but he probably told his viewers that she was going to win. That's probably what it was. I have to go back and check, but that's probably what it was. Shout out to Cool Blue. Jink reminds me of John Taffer from Bar Rescue. Oh, there's a lot more. Eric, when you clear these out, just clear out the ones, this Cool Blue one and the ones before it. And we'll start back with the Sparky one. There's a lot. I just want to make sure I get to the other stories. Okay. Based. I think Eric heard that. Eric, let me know if you heard that in the chat. Okay. Yeah, he did. Okay, good. All right, guys, we're going to go to our next story. Go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you very much. Bernie Sanders, ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Sanders is deciding to voice his opinion now that Kamala Harris has lost. Now Bernie Sanders has decided to tell us how he really feels. Now, what's interesting, right before we get into that conversation there with Bernie Sanders, something I want to point out here, again, shout out to Case Study QB because he's been doing the damn thing with these clips. Leah Wright, okay, the 2024 result was byproduct of Democrats never learning the lessons from 2016 Bernie Sanders. So I will admit, I agree with what she says here is true, like about those core economic issues, right? But it's like, why do you guys say these things after your candidate has lost? Why didn't you say these things when Kamala Harris was still in the race? And you're going to see I have that criticism for Bernie too as well. Listen to this.
I think this is the leftovers of the 2016 kind of mess, that there were all of these issues that the Democratic Party saw laid out very clearly in 2016 after Hillary Clinton's loss. And that rather than address those issues, they moved and they migrated. What happened is that the pandemic, right? The pandemic came upon us, and Joe Biden happened to be the person for the pandemic. And I think they mistook that moment for a referendum on what the Democrats had to offer, rather than being introspective. I'll tell you one other person who I think is going to be incredibly important, actually two other people. The first person is Bernie Sanders. One of the things that Bernie Sanders has been saying since at least 2014 has been about how the Democratic Party, if it wants to keep these coalitions, needs to talk about bread and butter issues. It needs to talk about politics. A lot of people attacked him for that, saying, well, are you saying that cultural politics don't matter? That's not what he was saying. He was saying we need to focus on these things. The other person is Stacey Abrams. We have not heard a lot from Stacey Abrams in this election cycle, but her organizations, particularly Fair Fight, the New Georgia Voter Project, and other organizations were instrumental in pulling together coalitions that ended up winning Joe Biden Georgia in 2020, but also Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin.
Okay, so those bread and butter issues, right? And that is something that Kamala Harris's campaign did not have. That's the reality. We've all talked about this. Now, what's interesting, though, is that Bernie Sanders is now also criticizing. He is coming forward to criticize and attack the Democratic Party. And this is kind of a low-key way of attacking Kamala Harris's campaign, too, when you see what he said. But he didn't say this before. So we're going to show you what he's saying now, and we're going to show you what he said before, because he issued a statement right after Kamala Harris lost. Bernie Sanders said it should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. And he has a longer statement here where he dives into, I'm not going to read all this because it's the same stuff he's been saying for years, which is, you know, the rich are doing 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. You guys have heard all this before, so it's the same thing. However, I will read this part right here towards the bottom where he says, will the big money interests and well-paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lessons from this disastrous campaign? Hey. So this is Bernie Sanders low-key, like maybe not so low-key, throwing shade at Kamala Harris's campaign. And then he goes on to say, will they understand the pain and political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing? Do they have any ideas as to how we can take on the increasingly powerful oligarchy, which has so much economic and political power? Probably not, right? In the coming weeks and months, those of us concerned about grassroots democracy and economic justice need to have some very serious political discussions. So that right there lets you know that it sounds like Bernie Sanders is planning something. I guess you guys can see my response to Bernie right there, where I said, you should have never endorsed her in the first place. And I stand by that. Bernie Sanders apparently is planning something. I don't know what that is or what it could be. But what I will say again is you should have never endorsed Kamala Harris in the first place, because Kamala Harris did not have those core economic issues a part of her campaign. And your base didn't come out for her anyway. She struggled with voters 18 to 44. The turnout for her, 18 to 44, the turnout was not good this election cycle. So Bernie's saying all that now, but then what I want to remind everyone is that this is what he was saying just not too long ago, October 29th.
I understand that there are millions of Americans who disagree with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the terrible war in Gaza. I am one of them. While Israel had a right to defend itself against the horrific Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, which killed 1,200 innocent people and took 250 hostages, it did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the entire Palestinian people. It did not have the right to kill 42,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of whom were children, women, and the elderly, or injure over 100,000 people in Gaza. It did not have the right to destroy Gaza's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare system. It did not have the right to bomb every one of Gaza's 12 universities. It did not have the right to block humanitarian aid, causing massive malnutrition in children and, in fact, starvation. And that is why I am doing everything I can to block U.S. military aid and offensive weapons sales to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government in Israel. And I know that many of you share those feelings. And some of you are saying, how can I vote for Kamala Harris if she is supporting this terrible war?
Here we go.
That is a very fair question. And let me give you my best answer. And that is that even on this issue, Donald Trump and his right-wing friends are worse. In the Senate, in Congress, the Republicans have worked overtime to block humanitarian aid to the starving children in Gaza. The president and vice president both support getting as much humanitarian aid into Gaza as soon as possible. Trump has said Netanyahu is doing a good job and has said Biden is holding him back. He has suggested that the Gaza Strip would make excellent beachfront property for development. And it is no wonder Netanyahu prefers to have Donald Trump in office. But even more importantly, and this I promise you, after Kamala wins, we will together do everything that we can to change U.S. policy toward Netanyahu. An immediate ceasefire, the return of all hostages, a surge of massive humanitarian aid, the stopping of settler attacks on the West Bank, and the rebuilding of Gaza for the Palestinian people.
There was just one problem, though. Kamala Harris is in office right now, and she made it very clear to the American people that she was involved in all those decisions that Joe Biden made, that she was sitting at that table, that she would not do anything differently. So Bernie, the statement that he issued now, criticizing the way the campaign was run, like he called it a disastrous campaign, which I agree it was. But then that shows the two-facedness, the two-sided coin of Bernie Sanders, because you sat up here for all these months lying to people's faces, telling them how we should support Kamala Harris, how she is the best choice, how you should get out there and support her, how she does have a good agenda. And then when she lost, then all of a sudden that was a disastrous campaign. She didn't have a good agenda. She didn't have a good platform. All of a sudden now you want to be honest. So that tells people something about you, Bernie, not just Kamala campaign. That tells people that you're fake. That tells people that you were basically going along to get along. But once everything fell apart, then you decided to tell people how you really felt. That tells people that you played people. You knew all along this was not a good campaign. You knew all along Kamala Harris did not have a strong economic platform, and you endorsed her anyway. So that says something about you. Yes, Kamala had a bad campaign, but it also says something about you and your character.
And let me be clear, we will have, in my view, a much better chance of changing U.S. policy with Kamala than with Trump, who is extremely close to Netanyahu and sees him as a like-minded, right-wing extremist ally. But let me also say this. And I deal with this every single day as a U.S. Senator. As important as Gaza is, and as strongly as many of us feel about this issue, it is not the only issue at stake in this election.
Here we go.
If Trump wins, women in this country will suffer an enormous setback and lose the ability to control their own bodies. That is not acceptable. If Trump wins, to be honest with you, the struggle against climate change is over. While virtually every scientist who has studied the issue understands that climate change is real and an existential threat to our country and the world, Trump believes it is a hoax. And if the United States, the largest economy in the world, stops transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, every other country, China, Europe, all over the world, they will do exactly the same thing.
Why didn't you say anything when Joe Biden approved those pipelines? Why didn't you say anything when Joe Biden lied about no more drilling permits and he approved the Willow Project? Why didn't you say anything? Bernie Sanders is a registered independent, ladies and gentlemen. He caucuses with the Democrats, but he needs to really act like a true independent, and he does not.
And God only knows the kind of planet we will leave to our kids and future generations. If Trump wins at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, he will demand even more tax breaks for the very richest people in our country while cutting back on programs that working families desperately need. The rich will only get richer, while the minimum wage will remain at $7.25 an hour, and millions of our fellow workers will continue to earn starvation wages.
Why didn't Kamala Harris have the $15 minimum wage part of her platform? She had on her platform, we can try to increase the minimum wage, but she didn't even put a dollar amount. Again, this was someone that Bernie Sanders endorsed. And now everybody is pointing fingers at different people to try to say this is the reason why Kamala Harris lost. Because it's not just because Kamala lost, it's the way that she lost. It's how she lost. I mean, Hillary at least won a swing state or two. Kamala hasn't won any swing states. It's the disaster of the loss. It's the fact that Trump also got the popular vote. The Democratic Party got demolished because they lost the House and the Senate. It's all of these things combined. So it just...
Did you all see the recent Trump rally at Madison Square Garden? Well, I did.
Here we go.
And what I can tell you is that as a nation, as all of you know, we have struggled for years against impossible odds to try to overcome all forms of bigotry, whether it is racism, whether it's sexism, whether it's homophobia, whether it's xenophobia, you name it. We have tried to fight against bigotry. But that is exactly what we saw on display at that unbelievable Trump rally. It was not a question of speakers getting up there disagreeing with Kamala Harris on the issues. That wasn't the issue at all. They were attacking her simply because she was a woman and a woman of color. Extreme, vulgar sexism and racism. Is that really the kind of America that we can allow?
See, this is Bernie falling into the same trap that Hillary Clinton fell into, right? Like when she was running against Donald Trump, these ads from Hillary Clinton, like, do you want your kids to hear this? Do you want your kids to hear this from your president? These types of words, this types of this. Let me tell you something. When people trying to pay the bills, they're not really thinking about those things at that point in time. People trying to pay the bills, they're trying to figure out, how am I going to be able to feed everybody in the house? How am I going to be able to keep the lights on? And things like that. And the thing is this, Bernie Sanders should have been honest about that during Kamala's campaign. He did a number of interviews. During any of those interviews, Bernie Sanders could have just quickly said, hey, I don't think Kamala Harris has a strong economic platform. I will not endorse Kamala Harris because she does not have a strong economic platform. Bernie Sanders is not in the Democratic Party. He's a registered independent. Why are you going along with what the Democratic Party is doing, Bernie? You say that the Democratic Party needs to, break away, needs to start breaking away from the donor money, which I agree, and that the Democratic Party needs to run on a working class message, which I agree 100%. But when they don't, you still with them. When they don't, you're still in their camp. When they don't, you still endorse them. When they don't, you're still their buddy, you're still their bro, you're still their pal. Where were you when AOC was lying about Gaza on the world stage? Where were you, Bernie? Where were you when all these so-called progressives turned their back on Medicare for all and just got in line with Democrat leadership? You're in the Senate. They're in the House. They were looking up to people like you. So now everybody want to point fingers. Everybody is your fault. But when Kamala was running this campaign, you guys got in line. So it's too late. What a mess. Let's go to some of the comments. Actually, let's go to, I don't want to forget the Rumble. Let's go to the Rumble rant because that one's there. I want to get to that as well. It's crazy, man. Thank you, BW12C. Emma is pure full of shit. At least she is alive and isn't losing her entire homeland. I almost want to find that video and comment, but I stopped interacting with them a very long time ago. Interesting. All right, let's go to a couple other comments. Thank you, Sparky. Ever since the Roe v. Wade decision, legal scholars said it was decided on very shaky legal grounds, so it should be codified into law, but politicians wanted to keep it as a permanent political tool. I agree. Thank you, GB. I remember Crystal from Breaking Points predicted that Kamala would win a landslide with her getting all 7 swing states. The delusion from these liberals has been quite entertaining to watch. Yeah, again, it's like not getting out of your bubble and not realizing that's not a number one issue for a lot of voters. Thank you, Buster Peak. Is he for real right now? Thanks, Cool Blue. I stopped listening to D shills like Cenk, Kyle, David Dahl, apparently retiring, Humanist Report, David Pacman, Tom Hartman, etc. years ago. Thank you, 72. Love you, Sabs. The Dems are obviously shaped to prevent third-party scenarios. They're the controlled opposition of the GOP. Tantrums seem like acting. Thank you, BMI. Sabby Sabs is the most honest woman on the internet. Oh, thank you. And thank you, Cooper. Doesn't Harris have a swear Trump in? Oh, have to swear Trump in awkward? I think Biden has to do it because Biden is still president. So I think Biden has to do it. And thank you, 72. Thank you, Sabby, for acknowledging super chats. It's good for you and it's good for all of us. And thank you, J.H. Scott. Kamala's speech didn't even thank a union member. Thanks, Atomic Yang. Love the commentary. Hilarious and informative. Great job, Sabs. All right, Eric, I stopped at Atomic Yang, and then we can pick up the rest from there. We're going to go to our next story here. I do want to tell you about what happened with Jill Stein. Jill Stein was just on the roundtable with the rest of us at Revolutionary Blackout Network. And there were some things that she told us what happened in Dearborn, Michigan, which I do want to get to when we get to the vote that she got in Michigan. But I want to explain, like, you know, how good this is for the Green Party. So Jill Stein did not get to the 5%, but there's a couple reasons for that I want to dive into in just a second. But I still want you to understand just how good this was for the Green Party and for Jill Stein, that they got to where they got to, right? They're being talked about right now, of course, on CNN by Bakari Sellers.
But the war in Gaza played a more looming role, I think, particularly in a state like Michigan. You saw in Dearborn, for example, certain precincts. There are precincts in Dearborn, Michigan, that Kamala Harris finished third. I mean, you have Trump, Jill Stein, and then Kamala Harris finishing third in those precincts.
And that right there says a lot for Jill Stein's campaign and the Green Party. The fact that she was able to make it so that Kamala finished third in some of those precincts. Now, I would argue that Jill would have finished first, but I'll explain to you why that did not happen.
I'm interested as we go through, I don't know if purge is the right word. I think that Republicans were going to go through a purge, Jeff. If Donald Trump would have lost, they were going to be able to have this kind of reckoning. I think Democrats are going to have this reckoning, and I'm interested to see how a part of our coalition, Arab American voters, those individuals who were pro-Palestinian, are going to analyze this race and what Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the impact that's going to have in the war on Gaza. Because I just go back to Jared Kushner saying that Gaza would be good beachfront property, right? And I'm interested to see how individuals who either set out or chose Jill Stein to punish the Democratic Party are going to reconcile that with what happens with Bibi Netanyahu. I, for one, believe we're going to have more chaos. If you're going to, I pray that he put somebody like a Marco Rubio, and I don't know if I've ever verbally said that I'm praying for Marco Rubio out loud, but I'm praying that he put somebody like Marco Rubio who at least has some sense of decency and common sense, although I don't agree with his policies per se as Secretary of State. So we at least have a level of stability. My concern with Donald Trump is the lack of stability in our global standing.
I mean, so the big question.
Imagine talking about a lack of stability with the recently re-elected presidential candidate and pretending like this administration has been stable when there's a genocide. Imagine talking about that. But they're bringing up Jill Stein's name, right? They're still talking about Jill Stein because they put out those numbers out there. And here's the thing. I don't want anyone to ever forget what Butch Ware said to me when he was on here last time, because there were warnings. And this is another thing. Like, again, they told people that they couldn't win. They told people she was not going to win. And this is why she was not going to win, because of the Muslim vote.
Yeah, Michigan, 3 swing states, which are essentially demographically, for the purposes of the African-American percentage of the population and the Muslim percentage of the population, they're the same state, okay, demographically. And in those 3 states together, 65% of the Muslims voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Joe Biden was polling at 12% in January 2024. They were dead. And I learned that on my first day on the campaign about a month ago. Well, if I knew that a month ago, they certainly knew that at that polling in January of 2024. They have known for 8 months that they cannot win any of the swing states that they need in order to win. They can't win them because they needed heavy majorities amongst the Muslim population just to carry those places. And that's why they've gone so heavy on the racial rhetoric and trying to get black numbers up, because they are trying to compensate for the wholesale exodus of Muslims from their voting bloc. And they seem ignorant of the fact that every time you raise every time you talk to the black community, you're also talking to the black Muslim community. And that black Muslim community is not coming along with this genocide no matter what.
So see, this is the part that they knew internally that they didn't tell anybody. Kamala Harris, like, they knew they couldn't win without the Muslim vote, because it was over 140,000 votes from Dearborn, from the Muslim voting community, that helped Joe Biden win Michigan. That's how he won. So then they try, okay, well, let's make up for with black voters. And that didn't work. That's why do you guys think Obama was like, the problem is with these you brothers? Why do you think they were putting that out there? So they saw that was a problem, right? So then I guess they realized that didn't go well. So then they tried to do it with white suburban women on Roe. And that didn't work out. Apparently not. I guess it turns out that sometimes there's some demographics that you just can't replace. Oh. So Jill Stein spent a lot of time in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, some of you may be wondering, how come she didn't come in first place in Dearborn instead of Donald Trump? Well, keep in mind that Kamala Harris did finish third in some of those precincts, right? So Jill Stein was on RBN earlier today with us. And what she explained, what happened is that when it came down to the final hour, there were some constituents there in Dearborn that were afraid, if they did support Jill Stein, that Kamala Harris may still win. So the general, I guess, sentiment in Dearborn was that they really wanted to make sure that Kamala Harris lost. Like, that was the goal, that she could not win. And then a couple of days before that, Donald Trump came to Dearborn and he met with Arab American voters there. Kamala Harris never came there. So the way that Jill Stein explained it was that in order to make it so that for sure that Kamala Harris did not win Michigan, some of the voters decided to vote for Donald Trump to guarantee that. So that's the way that Jill explained it earlier today. If you haven't seen that panel, watch that when you get a chance on Revolutionary Blackout Network. They explain that. Her and Shama were on there as well. So they broke that down. So that's why, like, some of you are wondering, like, why didn't Jill, come in first place? That's why. So she broke that down and explained, like, they wanted to make sure for certain that Kamala Harris did not win Michigan. And why is that very telling? It's very telling because that in itself will be a crack in the blue wall, which turned out to become a red wall entirely. Because Michigan is the most liberal of the three states. And I mean, Trump won Wisconsin and he also won Pennsylvania too. So, and I told you guys it would be very hard for her not to win without Michigan. So she still, even if she would have won Wisconsin, which I doubt because it's more conservative, she still would have lost because she didn't get North Carolina and she didn't get Georgia and all the other ones, right? So then when we look at this here, this was something that was really interesting. Shama had shared this that night. Unofficial results show Harris losing in Dearborn to Jill Stein in precincts where Biden won in a landslide and where Workers Strike Back has been campaigning with Arab and Muslim voters. To fight Trump and the right, we need a new working class anti-war party. And Shama was talking about that earlier today, like next steps, because a lot of you are wondering, what is the next step? Well, Jill Stein and Shama Sawant have been working together already, but the next step is to build, is to grow, right? Like strategizing, organizing, and creating a larger movement. It's one of the reasons why Shama started Workers Strike Back, right? You start with the working class, you start with the workers, and then you build that into the political space. This is how she was able to win in Seattle. But this is the tally here. This was one of the earlier ones from one precinct. Look at this final evening tally from one majority Arab American Muslim precinct in East Dearborn, Michigan. Trump sweep. See, you can see the ticket here. It has Kamala as at 59. Donald Trump at 203, Chase Oliver at 3, Randall Terry at 0, Jill Stein at 153. RFK Jr. at 0, Joseph Kishore at 1, and I can't see the Cornel West one because the ticket is folded there. But even on this precinct, you can see that Jill had 153 and Kamala Harris had 59. Now, why is that important as a third party candidate? It's important because this hasn't happened. I've never seen this happen before. Typically, you wouldn't even get that close. So I think that's really good. And whether or not this movement is the Green Party or if it's something either bigger or whatever, Shama Sawant, I know, is working towards that. She's already planned a date for organizing and strategizing and building a bigger movement. And she did this before in Seattle, so she knows what it takes. But the reality is, what Jill Stein was able to do with this campaign, this won't be forgotten. Because the fact that, like, the noise that she got, I believe she got over, Eric, when you get time, can you look it up and see how many total votes she has right now? The noise that she was able to make, when I checked this morning, she received over 40,000 in Florida. In Florida. For a third party. That's actually huge. I mean, it's just, it's a number of things. You can talk about, even Newsweek is talking about it. It says Jill Stein wins 22% of the vote in Dearborn as Gaza stings Harris network. So you see, this is one of those things. It says Jill Stein won 22% of the vote in the fiercely contested city of Dearborn, Michigan. And that's coming from NBC News. Kamala Harris won 28%, while Donald Trump won 47%. So do you see, this is not a good look for the Democratic Party, because here it is. You are a major corporate party. Donald Trump beat you with the Arab community that you won in 2020. And, you know, it goes to show what genocide is not good, obviously. And it's also not good for you to tell people that you're speaking when confronted about it. So there's that as well. And it goes on to say here, Metro Detroit is home to the nation's largest concentration of Arab Americans, with a large proportion of them living in Dearborn, the city which Democrat Joe Biden won by a 3-1 margin in 2020, has been roiled by political turmoil, with many upset with the Biden-Harris administration handling the Israel-Hamas war. So this sets a precedent, because what Jill Stein showed people is that, number one, when you're right on the issues and you meet people where they are, and Kamala Harris did not meet them where they were, the people come around. So I consider that a win. No, you know, they didn't get to the 5%, but I do consider that to be a win for Jill Stein and the Green Party, because, like, they've never been noticed. Like, they've never gotten to this level before. Not as long as I can remember, maybe Ralph Nader, but I mean, they've never gotten to this point before where they were able to beat Kamala Harris in some of these districts. But according to AOC, not serious. So that in itself is very telling. And then I want to make sure, one second before I get to this statement from Jill, because I want to cover her statement as well. Just want to make sure I got Okay. Yeah. Let me get to her statement. Once again, the two-party system has delivered a disastrous result for the American people. Now we must continue the uprising for the people-powered politics and demand the world we deserve, which will never be delivered by the twin parties of war and Wall Street. The Democrats have no one but themselves to blame for losing to Trump again. After the decades of failures and betrayals that paved the way for Trump's rise in the first place, from their unconditional support for the endless war machine and genocide in Gaza, to the subservience to Wall Street, to their indifference to human rights, to their reckless acceleration of the fossil fuel pollution driving climate collapse, to their assault on democracy. On all these issues and many more, for the Democratic Party has betrayed the trust of the people. The election removes any remaining doubt that the Democratic Party has utterly failed the people it claims to represent, and that we need a genuine opposition party for people, planet, and peace. Over the last year, we have continued our long-term efforts to build a movement for peace, for a livable planet, and for all the countless millions of people in America and around the world who have been neglected and abused by the parties of war and Wall Street. The momentum we achieved, despite the pervasive media blackout, threatened the Democratic Party so much that they set up an unprecedented operation dedicated to the suppression of grassroots movement. They harassed us with expensive lawsuits to kick us off the ballot, marginalized and smeared us in the media, posted jobs seeking people to sabotage our campaign, and even launched attack ads against us, something they'd never done before for any independent challenger. So you see how historic this campaign was? They never launched these ads before. It goes on to say the unprecedented attacks against us by the corrupt political establishment backfired madly. These attacks inspired a whole new multiracial, multi-generational coalition of voters, organizers, and activists to join forces with the Green Party, and that coalition will continue to grow. Our campaign built relationships with powerhouse anti-genocide activists, especially in the Muslim and Arab American community, the Black community, the student community, the reawakened anti-war movement, the radical labor movement, and many others. Year after year, millions of eligible voters have refocused to vote for either establishment party, particularly young people, people of color, and people of lower income. In the 2020 presidential race, a full third of eligible voters declined to participate. These are exactly the people our agenda speaks to. The vast majority of voters are calling for a political alternative like the Green Party that serves the greater good instead of the warmongers and economic elites. The political establishment is quaking in their boots that the public is discovering us. They will be shocked to see how our coalition grows as more voters discover they actually have a choice for the future they deserve. We have the solutions to end genocide and empire, to adopt a foreign policy based on international law, human rights, and diplomacy, to tackle climate emergency, to reverse wealth inequality and invest in human thriving, to dismantle systems of oppression and build a society rooted in justice, freedom, and equity. Our movement for people, planet, and peace is aligned with the values of priorities of the American people. And together, we have the numbers we need to transform our future. We only have to get the word out to millions of Americans who rejected the failed status quo and bring them into our movement. Everything we have achieved together is a victory for working people, for justice, for peace, and a future where all of us can thrive. Thank you. We have achieved together is a victory for working people. Or everything we have achieved together is a victory for working people, for justice, for peace, and a future where all of us can thrive. Thank you for your unwavering support and joining us in this fight to build an America and a world that works for all of us. We will only get stronger from here. The pressure will continue to build for the political transformation that American people demand. The political elites will continue to tell you that resistance is futile. Ignore them. This is our moment. Together, we are unstoppable. Strong statement there from Dr. Jill Stein. And all I have to say is, again, like, this campaign made a lot of noise, a lot of, waves. And, I'm very proud of Jill. And my sign is falling. What happened? I don't know what happened there. Sorry, my sign was falling. Very proud of Jill and Butch. And I think, they've done an amazing job. And one thing I do want to mention is this as well. One thing we also have to remember, I think about what else could have been done if they had the full amount of time. Remember, Jill was not the original nominee with the Green Party. The original nominee was Dr. Cornel West, and he decided to leave the Green Party and run an independent campaign. So then that left the presidential slot open. And then it was like, okay, who is going to run for president with the Green Party? And I think the way that, Jill explained it is like she wanted a John Mubaraka to run, and he wanted her to run. And he's the one that won the coin toss there. So just think about what else, the fact that they were able to do what they were able to do and get the attention and garner the support that they achieved. I think last time I checked, it's almost 700,000 votes for her. I have to double check again. The fact that, and then also remember they said Ohio ballots, they told people in Ohio the ballots, the stuff for Jill wouldn't count. So that was another one. The DNC, they kicked her off the ballot in Nevada, and there's right now over 15,000 none of these candidate votes in Nevada, which probably would have went to Jill Stein. So it's just one of those things, they were able to accomplish quite a bit considering the obstacles in front of them. So I don't want people to be discouraged. I don't want people to be down about it. Like I said, Jill and Shama are building a bigger movement. So stay tuned for that. And I'm glad I voted for Jill Stein. And I do feel like some of those younger voters that people said did not turn out for the two-party system, according to the exit polls, I think some of those young people voted for Jill Stein. Something to think about. Skylar says, I think the Greens can really grow these next 4 years. This is a real opportunity for them to show themselves as different from the duopoly and capable of to provide real leadership. This is a good point, Skylar. Yeah. All right. Based. Okay. Eric, I'm going to leave the super chats for you so I can get to this next story. Actually, I should do a couple of these. Thank you, Rhonda. I'm looking at my pocketbook. Right. Shout out to Salt and Pepper Natural, who's been a member for 1 month. Funny, Dem Working Family Party gave different reasons why they were in the position to run against Trump. I bet they did. Thank you, Marcus. This time, leftists will not accept libs in their ranks unless the libs let the left lead. Shout out to Echo Pup Music for becoming a Sabby member. Give Echo a big whoop whoop. Shout out to John Drake for the super chat. And shout out to Edward Shore, a trope associated with Kamala, epic fail. And thank you, Thomas. Hey, Bernie, get lost. Great show, Sabby. Thank you. Aunt Shawnee says, I'm not buying it from Bernie Sanders because he was all in with the Israelis and the Democrats bombing Palestine. There it is. And shout out to Samantha, who's been a member for 2 months. Kamala Harris is going to have to certify her own losing election to Donald Trump. There you go. All right, Eric, we stopped at Samantha. And we're going to go ahead and get to the next story. Let's go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't done so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Based. Everybody's talking about it. If you're not talking about it, you're thinking about it. Or you were in one of those meltdown videos where you were one of the people screaming. I made a list about it. I came up with 10 reasons why Kamala Harris lost. 10 reasons. And I am going to get into it. Now, this is in no particular order. Everybody understand? No particular order. I got to say this again, just in case people be like, why'd you put that one first? No particular order. 10 reasons why Kamala Harris lost her campaign. Here's the first reason. Celebrity overload. This is one people may not have thought about. Celebrity overload. Whether it was Beyonce, whether it was Usher, Eminem, whether it was Meg Thee Stallion shaking a booty in Atlanta, there was too much celebrity overload. It went above and beyond. It went over the top. And sometimes when that happens, it can give people the impression that you're trying too hard. Where I come from, we say, you doing too much. You're just doing too much. Feels like a distraction. In fact, I called this out on Twitter. Beyonce, Oprah, J-Lo, Bruce Springsteen, and Taylor Swift couldn't save Kamala. Looks like working class people aren't swayed by celebrity endorsements. Who would have thought? So you see, you just can't like this. Working class people don't care about this. People that are trying to pay the bills don't care about that. They don't care about you sitting down with Oprah and all these other celebrities. Actually, that's kind of a slap in their face to some of them because it's like, yeah, I can't relate to you. So I feel like the celebrity appearances and endorsements, I felt like it was too much. You don't need to have a celebrity at every freaking rally. That was too much. And yes, we do know that politicians will have a celebrity every now and then, but it was too much. It was all over the place, and it seemed like such a distraction from your campaign. Then you have people showing up to see what they thought would be a Beyonce concert instead of listening to your message, your policies, and your platform, which you weren't really talking much about that anyway. So that's one. Two, Gaza. The Gaza issue. One of the things we know is probably one of the biggest reasons voters begged Kamala Harris to listen, but she was too busy speaking. In Pennsylvania, 34% of respondents said they would be more likely to vote for the Democratic nominee if the nominee vowed to withhold weapons to Israel, compared to 7% who said they'd be less likely. The rest said it would make no difference. In Arizona, 35% said they'd be more likely. In Georgia, 39% said they would be more likely. This was probably one of the easiest gimmies. All Kamala Harris had to do was commit to an arms embargo and a permanent ceasefire. So the Gaza one is a big one. And you know, I have to point this out. Abandon Harris, he dropped bars. They dropped bars after Kamala lost, just to show you how easy this was for Kamala Harris. We'll fast forward a little bit here. Oh, here we go. Listen to this. Let me pull it back. Sorry, the Twitter videos sometimes. So easy, something so easy.
Community, we endorsed Green Party presidential candidate Dr. Jill Stein and her running mate Dr. Butch Ware to unify our protest vote. But let there be no misunderstanding. We told our supporters plainly that if they did not share this endorsement, they should still vote third party. Sitting out this election was never an option. This is not a victory speech, but we will not let this moment pass without congratulating the Muslim American community for its unprecedented stand. No minority group in the United States has come together so powerfully to draw a red line, and in circumstances as dire as these in modern history. True courage doesn't wait for permission, and principles are not accessories to be discarded when stakes are high. By holding this line, our community has displayed a rare and genuine integrity, one that shines in the face of extreme adversity. To those who stood by and watched, consider this our condolences. To every person who fancied themselves righteous, to those who postured as morally superior, you have exposed yourselves. For 14 months, you saw the images. Children beheaded, dismembered, orphaned, and did nothing. You saw videos of women torn apart by bombs, gunned down, mourning the erasure of entire bloodlines, and still you did nothing. You saw men crushed to death by tanks, lined up and executed, raped in Israeli prisons, and nothing moved you. Those of you with even a shred of self-awareness will come to realize you lost more than an election. You minimized and dismissed a genocide, funded by your tax dollars, your compliance, and your silence. You didn't just lose the election, you lost your humanity. Spare us the patronizing responses of, good luck under Trump. Our efforts for justice have always relied on people of conscience, and this past year has made it clear you have none. What did you think would happen? Did you really think we'd sit idle while our tax dollars were used to massacre our people, desecrate our holy sites, level our places of worship, and that we then vote for the administration responsible for one of the most egregious atrocities in modern history? Did you think We'd stand by as anyone who protested was silenced, beaten, arrested, and degraded? As the letter from Black Muslim American leaders so powerfully stated, the war on Gaza is a war on Islam. The Muslim American community, a diverse body of people from all ethnicities and races, has decided we will not stand down. We tell you what we told your murderous, complicit vice president when she berated anti-genocide protesters at her rally. Your words will not placate us, your fear tactics will not shake us, and your condescending tone does not intimidate us. This fight is far from over. If anything, the last year was just the beginning. The outcome does not change our path. We will continue organizing, mobilizing, and building within our community. We have achieved this much with only a year of effort. Imagine what we can accomplish with 2, 4, or 10 years. We will put in the work, and we will leave the rest to Allah. There are those within our ranks who attempted to mislead our community, rallying votes for Kamala Harris to protect their self-interests. For decades, these thieves and scoundrels have posed as representatives of our community. In truth, they represent nothing but their own greed. Let us take note of who they are and remember. Today marks the beginning of a new era, one where the Muslim American community ensures that the victims of US imperialism are no longer faceless, voiceless, nameless. For the past 25 years, we were led to believe that staying quiet and keeping our heads down would keep us safe. The tragic attacks of 9/11 happened. We condemned it, yet we were not spared. The illegal invasion of Iraq happened. We stayed silent, yet we were not left alone. The entire region was destabilized. A vacuum opened and chaos was unleashed on our people, and still the world pointed to us and demanded that we condemn the violence inflicted upon us. It is time for the Muslim American community to rise and reclaim its dignity, its integrity, its humanity, and in doing so, we hope every other minority community in the United States will see our example, draw their own red lines, leverage their votes, and stand for their dignity and humanity. In conclusion, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to righteousness, to strengthen our resolve to stand with the oppressed, and to grant victory to those who are crushed by their oppressors wherever they may be. Ameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
He left no crumbs. Everybody take note. All she had to do was call for an arms embargo and a permanent ceasefire, Gaza, and to show you that it was about her. If you look at the other races in Michigan, Harris loses Michigan and Wisconsin, but Slotkin and Baldwin win. Also, Rashida Tlaib won. It was her. That's not Donald Trump's fault. That's not Jill Stein's fault. That is Kamala Harris's fault. And then number 3, the media. The media is part of the reason why Kamala Harris lost. And I say media, I'm talking about corporate media. In fact, they admitted this themselves. The media sat there during this election cycle, and not only did they shame Donald Trump for having a record, being a felon, not thinking about the fact that there are people within the Democratic Party community that could be in that same situation that may also have had records, not thinking about those things, class issues. The media sat there and they told people that Donald Trump was Hitler. They called Trump supporters Nazis. I'm talking about the Morning Joes, the CNNs. They did all this stuff. They did this. And then when Donald Trump was a shot at, then they were like, well, we don't want anybody to, we don't want anyone to lose their life or anything like that. When they stirred up a lot of the hate and a lot of the divisiveness themselves, the media did that. The media sat there and defended Joe Biden when Joe Biden called Trump supporters garbage. Then he tried to walk it back. We know what he meant. The media constantly lied to the American people. It was the media who made you guys believe this woman was doing better than she was. And the polls were showing she lost the Muslim vote. She wasn't going to win. But the media made you think she was doing so well. She was not doing well. You guys had to come to independent media. You had to come to my channels like mine for me to tell you she was not doing well in Philadelphia. The media even calls out itself. They called out theirself for the lies. Listen to this.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats.
And when he says we were told, who told you that? Who told you that Puerto Rico was going to change things? Who told you these things? Where are you getting this information from? From these Democrat strategists? Remember, it's their job to lie. They're supposed to make you think she has a chance when she didn't really have a chance. The media is part of the reason why. The media, I would argue, the way they constantly kept going after Donald Trump and constantly attacking Trump supporters. Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe saying, who raised these people? The way they constantly kept doing that, I would argue that the media probably energized people who probably weren't going to vote to come out and vote against Kamala Harris. Does that make sense? When you look at the data, the numbers are showing you that Trump was able to increase new voter turnout. He got more new registered voters than Kamala Harris did. The media is part of that.
Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
Well, they're not going to do that because that means that they have to leave their cushy studios. They have to get outside of their bubble. But the media is a big part of the reason why Kamala Harris lost. 4, weak economic platform. This is one I think I went over and over. She didn't have the bare minimum economic issues that should have been on the platform. And Bernie Sanders laid out the blueprint for that one. Honey, it's easy. $15 minimum wage. You start with that. It really should be higher. $15 minimum wage. Universal health care, single payer, whatever people call it these days. I don't think they call it Medicare for all no more. Universal health care for everybody. Okay. paid sick and family leave. By the way, these are issues, with the exception of the healthcare one. These are issues that are passing in red states. Like you just did not have, that's the easiest walk you could have taken. Anybody running for office right now through the Democratic Party, you look at the blueprint that Bernie laid out. That's how you energize a young base of voters too. So all this tax credit, $20,000 tax credit. And if you have a baby in the first year, you'll get a tax credit for that too, but it's got to be in the first year, first time home buyer or your first generation, but you got to be one of the two. Ain't nobody got time for all that. You make it easy. You make it simple. Simple. Lack of an economic platform, a strong economic platform. It's that freaking easy. Number one issue from voters that was polled was the economy. I cannot understand why you did not have that. That was a gimme. That's a gimme. Big one. Big, easy one. Now you see, that's why Bernie Sanders is calling it a disastrous campaign. Because I don't understand how you got this wrong. It doesn't matter how many celebrities you bring out on the stage with you. We have inflation. The grocery prices are high. The economy sucks. You guys have not had a good economy under the Biden-Harris administration. How do you have a weak economic platform? It's that simple. That was number 4. And that actually takes us into number 5. Because this is another one that was a horrible idea. 5, relying on Roe. Relying on Roe. The campaign started off at one point talking about how people need to make ends meet. I grew up middle class child and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But at least you were, at least in the beginning, you were talking about people can't afford a home. Somewhere along the way, somebody must have advised you and said, stop talking about that and focus on Roe, on an issue that isolates a select group in the country and alienates the men, to focus solely on Roe. It just, all women don't agree with Roe v. Wade. And even some of the women who agree with the right to choose do not believe the right should be at the Supreme Court. They don't believe it should be on the federal level. They believe it should be done through the states. So you chose an issue that the Democrats had this card in their back pocket for a long time that they thought would just resonate with so many women. And all these women would come out and not thinking about the fact that a good portion of those women are also going to be conservative and may not support it. Not thinking about the fact that even when it comes to the church community, which they always go to the black church, some of the people in the black church not too fond about that either. Not thinking about these things. It is not a number one issue for most voters. So whoever advised Kamala Harris to start focusing mainly on Roe, that was a bad idea. Bad idea. And you know why I say that? Because the numbers show, check this out. To show you my point that people tend to believe it should be at the states, look at the numbers that came from the ballot measures. Abortion rights are beating Kamala in every single state that voted on them. See what I mean? This is the states that had it on the ballot in the state. So the state, most of them passed. Or if it didn't pass, it still got more participation than a vote for her. So this is what people need to see. Progressive policies aren't unelectable. Unpopular Democratic politicians are. So these are the states that had it. Look at the percentage points. And we'll show you the ones tonight who passed and who didn't. But look at the percentage points. More people came out to vote on abortion in these states than they did for Kamala Harris. So this is why I continue to tell, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who came up with these ideas, but the reality is, at the end of the day, you choosing to focus on that one single issue and thinking that that was going to drive all the women to come out and vote for you, that was a bad idea. Relied too much on Roe. 6, campaign shaming black men. Oh, this was the kicker. Barack Obama comes out there and shames black men and says the problem is with you brothers. And if it wasn't him, it was people that were surrogates of the campaign that were shaming black men. But what made it bad for Kamala is when she was questioned about what Barack Obama said to black men, she didn't push back. She didn't push back. She tried to change the subject. You cannot sit up there and shame your own base. This is an easy one. Like, do you guys remember Bernie Sanders shaming his own base? Do you guys see Donald Trump shaming his own base? Why would you? The best thing for Kamala Harris to have done at that point in time is to say, I respectfully disagree with what Barack Obama has said. You can also add some data to show that like black men overperform when it comes to voting for Democrat presidential candidates when compared to any other male demographic. You couldn't even do that. So the Democratic Party, this whole idea of shaming black men and now they're trying to shame Latino men and all this doesn't make people want to come home to you. If I know every night I walk through the door, you're going to scream and yell at me, I don't want to come home to you. I might just get in the car and just go for a drive. I don't want to come home to you. So what is this? Bad idea. Shaming black men. That was another reason why I think Kamala Harris lost. And then there is number 7. And this was probably the worst of the worst of the worst. Hillary Clinton. Adding Hillary Clinton to your advising team. The woman who lost. And how did we know? Because she told us so.
So what is your assessment of the stakes of this election? I mean, you are in a very exclusive club of people who've ever run for president, let alone run against Donald Trump. So to what extent do you offer counsel or do you speak with Kamala Harris about how to run against Donald Trump, who, as you've said, is a different candidate now, a darker candidate, arguably, than he was in 2016?
That's absolutely true, Willie. You know, I've talked with Kamala a few times. I obviously talked with her before the debate because he is more incoherent. He is angrier. He is lashing out all the time at everybody. He's filled with grievance and rage. And, you know, in my acceptance speech at the convention way back in 2016, I said, you know, you can't trust somebody with nuclear weapons who you can bait with a tweet, because I saw that in him at the time. A lot of people didn't, or they gave him the benefit of the doubt, or they thought, hey, you know, we've had 2 terms of a Democrat, let's try the Republicans, for whatever reason. I understand that. But now the stakes are even higher because he has a record. We have seen him try to abuse power. We have seen him try to overturn a legitimate, free, fair election. We have watched him bungle COVID and cause unnecessary deaths and pain. So he has a record. And in addition to that, he's told us what he's going to do. He is absolutely linked to this Project 2025 and all of their dark and dystopian efforts to turn the clock back on Americans' rights and the way we live and how we, you know, look at our futures together. And he has a long rhetorical record now of making it very clear that he would be unaccountable if he were ever near the White House again.
You took advice from Hillary Clinton, someone who lost to Donald Trump. Why would you listen to her? She's a loser. Like, hello, loser. She lost. Why would you take advice from her? She's bougie, she's snobby, she's prudish, she's not likable. I'm getting her off the screen right now. I can't even look at her anymore. She's not likable. Hillary Clinton, another reason why Kamala Harris lost her campaign. Number 8, and this one is probably the most crucial of them. Kamala Harris abandoned her base. Imagine if Bernie Sanders, when he was running, he would have abandoned his base and saying, I'm going to put a Republican in my cabinet. Hey, Marco Rubio, why don't you come on over here and help me with my campaign and we can work together? This is what Kamala Harris did. She was unwilling to work with progressives, socialists, put those people as a part of her campaign. But she reached out her hand to Liz Cheney. And she bragged about her endorsement from Dick Cheney. These are two war-mongering people. And that right there told everybody what your cabinet would look like. And that right there told everybody what your agenda would look like when it comes to foreign policy. You were willing to extend your arm to Republicans who were not even on agreement with you on a lot of these things. But you weren't willing to extend your arm to go to Dearborn and talk to the Muslim community there. You weren't willing to extend your arm to progressive, to socialist voices. You just was trying to lean into moderate Republicans. She was trying to capture those Nikki Haley voters. But when you look back at the GOP primary, you yourself will see that most of the people who voted for Nikki Haley were independent voters. So I guess she thought she could pick them up. This whole idea of I can pick up these Republicans and all these Republicans will come and support me, that's usually not the reality. The reality is, when you look at the numbers, they usually support their party. And you can even see it here. Another criticism, the Liz Cheney factor. Shout out to Case Study QB for this one, discussing VP Harris did not play to her base. Look, they're even calling it out now.
We have learned that there is not an opposing party to the Republicans. The Democrats need to clear out the entire leadership group and build it from the ground up again, because they failed at every level they could fail at last night.
You feel that the Democratic Party should be essentially, stripped and start anew. What would...
Let's go back to that one more time.
We have learned that there is not an opposing party to the Republicans. The Democrats need to clear out the entire leadership group and build it from the ground up again, because they failed at every level they could fail at last night.
They failed at every level they can fail at.
You feel that the Democratic Party should be essentially, stripped and start anew. What would that new Democratic Party look like, and what would it be? What are the differences in what the traditional Democratic Party be?
Well, take a note from the Republicans. Play to your base. Kamala Harris did not play to her base in this election. And I say that as somebody who lives where Kamala Harris is from, Oakland, California. She did not play to the values that she grew up raised with here in Oakland, California, in Berkeley, California. The fact that she didn't do a rally here shows that she knew that. And she played, the fact that you picked two of the least popular Republicans to talk to, campaign with, Dick and Liz Cheney, shows that, you're not playing to your base. And I respect Kamala Harris. It's got to be hard right now, but you have to play to your base. And the base of the party is young, it is progressive, it is left leaning, it cares about Gaza. And they, by not bringing a Palestinian on stage to the DNC, by talking about we want to have the most lethal fighting force in the country, these are not the base values of the Democratic Party.
There will be an autopsy after all of this, I'm sure. W. Kamau Bell.
You see it? Perfect statement there. She did not. She abandoned her base. One of the biggest mistakes, I think, that you can make. Again, Bernie never did this. Never abandoned his base when he was running for president. And we can talk about what happened after. But when he was running, did not abandon his base. The Democratic Party, this whole idea, you running this Hillary Clinton style campaign, this whole idea of let me try to lean into the right and appeal to the Republicans. I don't see Republican candidates doing that to Democrats. You don't see people that run to the Republican Party, you didn't see Nikki Haley saying, let me lean into the Democrats. Donald Trump wasn't like, let me lean into the Democrats. Let me pick these Democrats and put them part of my team and have them in my cabinet, have them on my What I'm saying is this. The Democratic Party is always trying to lean to the right, and they're willing to do that because that's still status quo. Anything to get away from the left, the real left. And it's not a winning strategy. You got to be able to pick up those voters that supported Bernie Sanders that no longer support him or any of these other progressives anymore. And you're not going to pick those people up by running a Liz Cheney. Whoever came up with this idea, they should be fired. Period. I don't know whose bright idea that was. Let's get Liz Cheney on board. They should be fired. Okay? That was number 8. Number 9. The border. She was in charge of the border. She's the current vice president. That was her assignment. All this time that went by, she wasn't really going down to, she said she didn't go to the border, right? Now she runs for president and people ask her, what about the border situation? And she says, well, we had a bill, but Donald Trump called his buddies and said, cancel the bill. What does that have to do with everything that you were supposed to be doing before that bill went through Congress? You weren't doing anything. You told Lester Holt you hadn't been there. You weren't doing the job. She did not own the accountability and the responsibility for what happened at the border. This was the mistake about selecting someone and selecting anyone, period, but selecting someone that was a part of the current administration because you were part of the problem. She flips her border message to all of a sudden this ad that is like, I'm going to be hawkish on the border. I was tough on crime and border people and international criminals and all that. Yeah. Okay. Who are you now? You know, you were there all that time. You ain't do nothing with the border. Now we're supposed to believe that you spent all this time as AG cracking down on the border. Okay, then why weren't you doing it when you were in office? Not a good look. That was the border, number 9. And number 10, which was the easiest one of all. Kamala Harris never distanced herself from Joe Biden. You had one job. All you had to do was separate yourself from Joe Biden, and you couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She went on to The View. Is there anything that Joe Biden has done that you would do differently? No. Blew it. Blew it. What do you mean? No. Now you just told everybody that Joe Biden is running again. Couldn't do that. Could not separate herself from Joe Biden. Not from the lean into the Republicans and the Liz Cheney and all this shit. You said, well, for one, I'm not Joe Biden. You sounded like him to me. Some of the policies that she had on her website were on Joe Biden's 2024 website. Nobody knew who you were. You were just trying to be something in front of one person, then another person, and all she had to do was that. And that would have led into the Gaza situation. Because if she would have separated herself from Joe Biden, one of the key ways of doing that was showing people how she would have been different on Israel and Gaza. I will always make sure Israel has a right to defend itself. This all began on October 7th. That right there let people know you would not be different. One job, one freaking job. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. So people said, why should they support you? Why? You were the same. They knew they'd get the same old. And this leaning to the Republican, I'll show you how it works. It does not work. Look at this. How registered Republicans voted. 94% in 2020, 94% Trump, 6% Democrat. 2024 election, 94% Trump, 5% Democrat. This mythical idea of let me win over all these Republicans, it's not real. This was stupid. well, some of the Republicans voted for Joe Biden. Yes, that's true. But same thing at the end of the day, he didn't rely on it. You can't rely on it. This is just what? And there's a bonus. The bonus. There was no Democrat primary. There was no Democrat primary. There was no Democrat primary. She was selected. You didn't give people a choice. Maybe people wanted to sit down and see the options and vote like we used to do and vote for that person. And then that person becomes the nominee. No, this woman was selected. And I believe she was selected because they knew she probably wouldn't make it to the primary, just like she didn't in 2020. These are all the things that went wrong with Kamala Harris's campaign. And that's just 10. And that's why she lost. I'm not a Democrat strategist. I don't work in DC, but I have something called common sense. And if I can figure this shit out, you guys in DC can figure it out too. What a mess. There it is. And then we are going to do the call in, guys. I haven't forgot about that, but I do want to give you some good news. Really good news. I want to show you some of the things that passed, and they're done by category. Ballot measures. There are some ballot measures that passed. Ranked choice voting, abortion. We got to bring those up. You guys got to see this. Again, the fight is going to be in the states. The fight is on the local level, guys. You see why we can't wait for these people in DC to do stuff for us. We can't. The fight is in the states. Look at all the things that are passing in the states, right? So abortion's the first one. Passed in Arizona, Colorado. Everybody see what I mean? It's in the states, fam. It did not pass in Florida. I'm sorry, guys. And that's only because with Florida, they have to have 60% for a measure to pass, even though the majority, which is 57%, voted for it. It has to reach 60% for it to pass. So sorry about that for Florida. Maryland, it passed. It also passed in Missouri. See what I mean? See, this is another thing. When I brought up the Kamala stuff, right? You see these states, some of these red states that are passing it. This tells you something, right? So Missouri's a red state. They passed it. Montana passed it. See what I mean? This is what happens when you leave it up to the people. You leave it up to the people and not these ridiculous representatives that don't even represent us. Nebraska passed. So there's two here. Initiative right to abortion and prohibit abortions after the first trimester, with the exception of SA or incest. I think these two went together, if I remember correctly. Nevada passed. New York passed. South Dakota did not pass, unfortunately. Ranked choice voting. Here's another one pretty interesting. Ranked choice voting passed or did not pass in Arizona, unfortunately. That was actually closer than I thought it would be. Didn't pass in Arizona. What's going on with, oh, they're still counting in Alaska. I want to know why you guys moving so damn slow. And why did it take you so long to call your state when we all know it's going to be red anyway? What you guys got going on up there? I know there's moose and deer and all that stuff, and I know it's cold as hell. But I mean, why it take you guys so long to count these damn votes? So that's Alaska, Arizona. It did not pass in Colorado. I'm actually surprised something did not pass in Colorado, because Colorado is kind of the testing ground for a lot of these things, you know? So it didn't pass in Colorado. But it looks like no excuse absentee voting passed in Connecticut. I'm trying to see where did it pass? I thought it passed. Let me see. There it is. Ranked choice voting passed in DC, of all places. It also passed, is that the last one? Yeah, DC, it passed. In Iowa, the citizenship requirement to vote and allow 17-year-olds to vote in the primaries passed. So if you're 17 in primary, I guess in Iowa, you can do that now. Ranked choice voting did not pass in Idaho, but the citizenship requirement to vote did pass. So everybody's seeing this. They're making it so that you have to be a citizen to make sure that is a requirement. Same thing with Kentucky, citizenship requirement to vote passed. And same thing in Missouri. Now, Missouri was kicking ass with these BIs, man, because Missouri passed citizenship to vote, and they also prohibit ranked choice voting, establishes that only citizens who are Missouri residents can vote, and prohibits ranked choice voting. Missouri had a lot of them. Also, citizenship requirement for North Carolina, that passed. Ranked choice voting in Nevada did not pass. That was the top 5 ranked choice one. Voter ID in Nevada passed. And established citizen redistricting commission in Ohio did not pass. Oklahoma passed citizenship requirement to vote. Oregon didn't pass ranked choice voting. So I'm sorry, guys. The ranked choice voting is striking out. Sorry, guys. Again, I think part of it is because people don't understand. The question is so convoluted. South Carolina, also citizenship requirement to vote passed. South Dakota passed top 2 primary. Did not pass top 2 primary elections. It's interesting. These are just a couple of a few. One I wanted to look at was marijuana. This is a crazy one. Florida did not legalize marijuana, again, because it has to get to that 60%. So they have 55.9, so it didn't pass. It also did not pass in North Dakota. I don't understand why anyone would vote against that. South Dakota, it did not pass. Why you guys don't want to legalize marijuana? That was a gimme, I think, Let's go to minimum wage. Minimum wage in Alaska, increased minimum wage to 15 passed. In Arizona, decreased minimum wage for tipped workers. That did not pass. That also did not pass here in Massachusetts either. California still tallying. Massachusetts, I told you guys, increased the minimum wage for tipped employees. That did not pass. A lot of people voted no on that one. But also Missouri, again, doing the damn thing. Missouri just passed minimum wage and earned paid sick time. So that's a big one. We passed the paid sick time here in Massachusetts, but that is huge for Missouri. So notice how a red state like Missouri is passing progressive policies. See what happens when you give the questions directly to the voter. And that's just a few, guys. I can go into a little bit more detail at another time, but I do want to make sure we get into call-in as well. So I'm just going to take a quick break. Eric's going to pop on. Eric, I think we still have a couple super chats to read, and then we can do call-in. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Here we go. All right, here we are on this post-election Thursday night. This is the part of the show where we're doing the transition from the regular show into the Zoom Hangout, formerly known as Call-In. The Call-In app is no more, but we still do a Call-In style hangout where you can jump in and we like to hear from you all what you think about things. So before we do that, I'll read out some chats, and Sabby gets a little break. And she's setting up the room actually during the break. It's also why we don't have the link for you quite yet, but right at the end in a little bit, we'll have the link for you. All right. Let me see here. What we got for some of these chats. Let's see. Yeah, all right. All right. Thanks, CM, for being a member for 7 months. Who says the lib meltdown is music to my ears. And that's I think that's Free Palestine and Free Puerto Rico. Yeah, Free Palestine, Free Puerto Rico flags. And thanks for the super chat, Cool Blue. He says Bernie is now like Nancy, past his sell-by date. I hear you. All right, let's see. I'm just going down the list. Thanks for the super chat from the YouTube chatter known as Fuzzy Balls, who says War Pig Bernie, who went further to the right than many Republicans for the military-industrial complex. I can't believe anything he says anymore. I hear you. Thanks for that one. And thanks very much for the super sticker, MJ Merriweather. And we had this chat in the queue from Survivor Mary, who said Bernie should have endorsed Jill Stein, and then I'd still respect him and believe he cared about the over 50K dead babies, in Gaza. I hear you. And thanks for the super chat, BMI 3000 Reloaded, who says radicals who voted for Trump was a protest vote. It was a protest against the Democratic Party, not Kamala Harris. Interesting. Thanks for that one. And Cool Blue, thanks for this one. Jill Stein is correct. I was born and in the area of Dearborn, Michigan. Kamala went to Oakland County, one of the richest counties in Michigan and the USA. Yeah, and that makes sense. If she's going there to fundraise, then she's going to go where the money is, right? And that's kind of what Kamala is all about. Excuse me. All right. Thanks for this super chat from LGK TV, who says, or is that Old Cheeky TV, who says the Missouri results prove that you don't need Democrats to protect you. They need you. Trump won almost 60% of the vote, yet abortion rights and increased minimum wage, sick leave passed too. I mean, as far as like the ballot measures passed that way. Yep. Thanks for that one. And thanks for this one, Mortal Technique fan, who says, as soon as I saw Cardi B, I knew Kamala was going to lose. Right. And thanks for the super chat, Cameron. Hi, Sabby. I voted none of these candidates in Vegas because Jill wasn't on the ballot. Gotcha. Oh, and you're voted none of the candidates because Jill wasn't on there. Gotcha. And thanks, Michael, who says, do you believe 86% of blacks voted for Harris? Well, we can talk about that in the Zoom hangout. And going down the list here, thanks, John Michael, who says, Sabby, Kamala lost because she was an awful candidate. She would never have won a primary. Yeah, it's an interesting question. And again, we can talk about it, think about it in the Zoom hangout as well. There was that idea. I mean, I agree she was a terrible candidate. She still, I guess you could make the argument she still did get 48% of the vote. She was kind of carried along, but then Trump was that bad. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at that. But yeah, and thanks for this one, Toothpick. If only black people could get together like Abandoned Harris did. Interesting. And thanks for this one, New York Varsity Sports. At that same rally at Madison Square Garden, Giuliani said that Palestinians are terrorists at age 2. The line about the Puerto Rican island was rats, but not this really. Gotcha. Oh, the line about PR was rat, you know what, but not this. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like it was, they got all upset about one, but not the other. And thanks for this super chat. Cool Blue says, D's have no vision, no policies to help have-nots. Yeah, because I mean, who both parties represent is, the billionaire class. And thanks for this one, Red Six. Speaking on starting anew, Jamie Harrison will not be seeking re-election for the Democratic Party chair, which comes up for a vote in January. And thanks for the super chat, Jay Tolbert. She told Venezuelans not to come here. How come no one threw this in her face? That was the equivalent of banning them, just like Trump. Yep. And thanks for this one, BMI 3000. He says, Kamala was scared. She was afraid to take risks. She has no backbone or courage. Yeah, and I mean, I think the real gist of it in the end is that Kamala, like the servants in both parties, are the servants of that top 0.1% class, that billionaire class. And, I think that really puts straitjackets on what they can do, what they can say, how they can be. Like this thing of, she should have called for a ceasefire and an arms embargo. I mean, I could see she could have maybe made noises about a ceasefire, which they kind of tried to do. But there was like no way in hell that she or any of them were ever going to call for a ceasefire, because we're ever going to call for an arms embargo, because that hits at directly the reason why all this is happening. Every bomb that falls in Gaza, every jet that's sold over there and put in use, every drone, all those things are cash and profit for that military industrial complex, which is really an extension of the billionaires. Who owns these mega corporations? That is like the most important thing to both parties, the leadership of both parties. That's the thing that we always have to come back to, right? Always focus on the money and back to the money. And so that's why I say that they were never going to come within 1,000 miles of an arms embargo. An arms embargo, not even just stop selling all these arms, would just be a simple thing to help the situation. But the selling of the arms is the reason why it's all happening in the first place. It's all about the money. It's all about that MIC profit, the billionaire profit. And so to expect or to even think that the standard bearer of either party, either major party, is ever going to call for an end to that or even slowing that down is just never going to happen. Because if they were the type of person who would do that or even consider that, they would never be allowed in that position of power. These people are selected in that way, in that the ones that would do something like that, sorry, I was hitting the wrong thing here, who would do something like that are never allowed to come within a hair's breadth of power or near power. Let's look at what we had out here on the Rumble. Let's see if we put that there and do that one. There we go. Thanks for this tipped comment out on Rumble from No Name Yet podcast. Who says, I wouldn't follow Bernie Sanders if he was leading people on a guaranteed trail to heaven. His political revolution was a Democratic Party colonoscopy. All right. Interesting way of putting it, but I hear you. No Name Yet podcast. Let's flip that around there. Let me make sure we haven't missed anybody. I think we covered everything. And Corey tells me we have Sabby Sabs 2 set up for where people can go to see. Let me get that banner up.
Great. Okay, and I already opened the Zoom room, so I see people already joining. Just mute yourself when you join, and yeah, just mute yourself. And the link there. That link is also pinned to the top of the chat, and the passcode. You can also get it on sabrinasalvati.com if you're looking for that link, and the passcode.
It's also on sabrinasalvati.com.
Yeah. And if you want to speak, what you do is go to the bottom of the screen and click on reactions and select. Oh, where's raise your hand? Hold on. Did they move it? Let's see. Hold on.
You react, raise your hand. I just raised mine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just go down to the bottom and there's an option. You scroll down and there's an option called raise hand and just raise your hand. I think people already found it because they already raised their hands.
Co-host?
Yeah. And I'll make Eric a co-host. And there you go. And everyone just mute yourself. Thank you. And we will go ahead and hop on over there. Again, you can get the link in the passcode, sabbysabs2.com. It's also pinned to the top of the chat as well. And I will see you guys over there and we can chat about this election. All right. Have a good night.
All right. We'll see you in the Zoom hangout.
Keep up the fight.